We're live.
I think we should have a moment of silence for those supervisors that have constituents that live in the snow.
Okay. Should have one for those supervisors who don't get to live in the snow.
We don't need a moment of silence.
I know, we still pity our
Okay. Let's see. First thing to do is call the meeting to order. And would we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There are no announcements from the chair this morning, so we will move forward to the consent agenda. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without further discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested member of the public may request that any item on the consent agenda be removed for further discussion prior to the board's taking action. Does any board member wish to pull any item on the consent agenda? Does any staff member wish to pull any item on the consent agenda? Is any member of the public here present this morning that has any item on the consent agenda, items 1 through 3 inclusive, they wish to have discussed with or by the board prior to the board's taking action? Seeing none, the chair is open for motion on the consent agenda as presented.
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Supervisor Walensky, a second by Supervisor Tofanelli. Do I have further board discussion? All in favor so indicate by stating aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the Board of Supervisors, and we will stand in recess until 9:10 a.m. Thank you. Okay.
Do we have to stand?
Okay, public comments, 5 minutes per person. Comments shall be limited to items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and are not on the agenda. So, first up is George Fry. George, will you state your name for the record and give us your comments?
Certainly. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I just have one quick comment. I know that'll come as a shock to you, Tom. But my comment is maybe we should start public comment at 9:05. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Amanda Carlin. I'm with the Tridam 4-H group, and I'm an all-star pledge, and I am the president of the Tridam 4-H group. And I would like to thank you guys for your support in the 4-H and for all of the 4-H county. Is it all right if I come up there and give you these? Okay.
Certainly. Please come forward. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Matthew Hobgood. I'm part of the Jenny Lynn 4-H group, and this is my second year in this. I'm not really too experienced, but I am very privileged to be able to come here today in front of you guys and thank you for your support of Calaveras 4-H.
And what do you do in 4-H?
I'm part of the poultry group, so just doing showbirds this year, and I'd like to present you.
Please come forward. I'm already losing my voice. I don't know. I'm coming down with a cold or something.
Hi, I'm Jared Sparrow, and I'm from Jenny Lynn 4-H, and I'm 13, and this is my 4th year. And I'm in beef, citizenship, and rabbits. And I just want to thank you for all of your support in 4-H.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say that I think beef and good citizenship go together.
Said those in rabbits.
Where's the beef?
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Carlin. I'm with the Tridam 4-H Club, and I'm attendance secretary for Tridam, and I would just like to thank you for your support for 4-H.
As in Carlin's of the Arnold area? No.
Thank you very much, Melissa.
This is Jared Carlin. He's 6. Stand up, buddy. Come on. He's 6 years old. He's with the Tridam 4-H Club. He is our flag bearer, and this is his 2nd year in 4-H, and he's in KVs and cooking.
All right.
Oh, let me get a little way around there. Yeah, come back around for you.
I'm Elizabeth Enderline, and I am from Jenny Lind and Tridam. I'm officially in Jenny Lind, but I take some classes in Tridam also. I am in citizenship, food preservation, crafts, sewing, and poultry.
All right.
Thank you. Congratulations to you.
My name's Kaomi Payne, and this is my 2nd year in 4-H, and I'm in Jenny Lind, and I'm in food preservation, crafts, sewing. I forgot the rest of it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. Yeah,
And
well
thanks
done.
for making our day.
Yes.
Hello. I want to introduce myself because we have some new supervisors, at least new for me, because I haven't been here in a long time, and it's good to be here. I'm Elizabeth Thompson, and I'm the Executive Director for Common Ground Senior Services. And it's good to meet you, Jeannie. I hear a lot of good things about you. I'm here because we have a fundraiser coming up for both Amador and Calaveras County. Common Ground runs, as you know, the Meals on Wheels program in both counties. And this is our first annual bowl-a-thon. And I'm hoping that we are going to get a lot of participants in Calaveras County. And with that, I'm going to pass out some flyers. And I would like for you guys to encourage staff here at the county to get a team together and come down to Sutter Creek, Gold Country Lanes on
There's
April.
already 2 members, Steve. I've just challenged
Let's get a full
Steve.
board bowling team.
Yay!
I think we can take them.
All right. I'm in.
3, 4. Come on, try.
Perfect. I would love to see you guys over there. And if you
How
can't
many on
come,
a team? What do you have, 4?
five per team.
Well,
If you sponsor, it's $250 for 5. You get hot dogs and food, and we're also having a bake sale and a fun fair outside. So if you want to bring your families, you can do that. Our seniors are baking as we speak, so for the big bake sale. But it's going to be a lot of fun. We're trying to make it more of a joint effort here. But I do want to challenge you guys to challenge Amador County as well, and the staff as far as the different groups, to come down and have a lot of fun. Meals on Wheels is growing. It continues to grow every single year. Funding is very limited. Cost is very high. Fuel is definitely pushing us way beyond our budget. And we can we need the help to just make sure these programs go well. And then one thing, too, I do want to thank you for the grant that I have every single year. And it especially came in very handy when the budget didn't pass. I wrote a letter real quick. Within a week or so, it came. And I'm really appreciative of that, because it does take a long time for the budget to pass. And if the budget doesn't pass, we don't get any kind of funding at all from our source. So I'm going to hand this to you. And then
Hand it to the board clerk, and she'll pass it out.
Okay, great. And then we'll see you on April 9th.
when do teams report for duty here?
Exactly. We'll have raffle tickets, so you can either bowl, you have to bowl, and then you can work also. Call us. Call us. We got lots of jobs. We got lots of jobs selling raffle tickets. I think you can do that really well.
I think Steve wanted to know when we had to have our list of participating team members in by.
Oh, anytime.
Just show up.
You can just show up, but call so we know.
And 4 o'clock is the beginning of festivities? 12 to 4.
Elizabeth, we had the Area 12 Agency on Aging audit last week, and they were very complimentary about the restaurant program, and it's the top in the state. In fact, there's not many places that do it, so congratulations.
Thank you. And you know what's exciting about that is Cozy Cabin is again interested in providing it. And I spoke with Sue's up in Arnold, and they're really interested in providing it. So right now I'm working on numbers to whether we have enough funding to at least support 1 or 2 days in these different sites. The Copperopolis over Copper Kitchen also has called and want to get on board. So the restaurant program's over 20,000 meals in just the restaurant programs in this county, and we have 3 restaurants. Thank you.
I want to, Elizabeth. I want to piggyback on what Marita said. And, you know, I've been there to the Country Kitchen in Campbell's Country Kitchen in Valley Springs and seen the program in action with people with their vouchers and different things. So that program works, and I know that it's a help for the business. It's a help for the people. So I really think that it's a win-win situation, and I really want to thank you for your work on that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great program we have.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Tom, Elizabeth is in your district, so you better sign up.
Thank you, George. Someone needs to keep track of these matters.
Good morning, Board. My name is Scott Anderson. I'm the Road Department Superintendent. I'm just here to give you guys an update on the Storm Watch 2011 update, as we're calling it. Basically, we have all hands on deck, once again, preparing for another low storm event. And I'll just start off real quick by thanking the Public Works staff, as well as the snowplow drivers, extra hire drivers up there in the Arnold area, as well as the Glencoe, San Andres, and Jenny Lind areas. These guys have been doing a phenomenal job, working 12-hour shifts, 2 shifts a night, seeing the snow more than they're seeing their families at this point. Beyond popular belief, things are getting done up there in the Arnold corridor. We are, like I said earlier, we are out there and we are doing the best that we can. Obviously, it isn't the type of storm that we had dealt with during the Thanksgiving Day era earlier this year. However, we still are dealing with down PG&E lines as well as trees in the right-of-ways. And you know, I wish we could tailor-make these storms not to happen on the weekends so people can get into their cabins and do the things they want to do up there, but unfortunately, we don't have that power. So in saying this, the public up there in the Arnold Corridor, MECO, and those areas have been really kind to us. A lot of them, anyway. We do have our issues, but we are mitigating those as we speak. What we're trying to do is we're trying to. The battle we're fighting right now are the people that are coming up from the valley and parking in the roadway and causing bottlenecks in our snow removal efforts. That happens every season, so it's an ongoing issue. We just have to be able to cope in those situations. I'd also like to thank the Sheriff's Dispatch. They do a great job informing us of all the issues that do arise 24 hours a day. You know, when we're up there, we staff the phones for 2 12-hour shifts as well, and dispatch from our desk up in the Arnold area. So they do a really good job, and they're well received by us. I'd like to thank Rochelle Whiting as well at the Sheriff's Department OES for getting the storm releases out, the media releases. She's doing a great job, and that really helps notify the public
Like I said earlier, there are a lot of variables, like I talked about earlier, that we're dealing with up there. Down power lines, trees entangled in power lines, and all these issues slow the process of snow removal. With the low, heavy snows that we've dealt with this year, or this particular year, our guys are spread as much as we can get out of them, we're getting out of them, as well as our equipment. So I just urge the public to be patient with us, and we'll get the job done. Today, they're probably pretty happy with us, except for the snow berms in the driveways.
Well, that's because Gary and I brought some sunshine today.
There you go. Attaboy. Okay, we down in the lower areas, I don't want to...
Sunshine week.
In the lower areas, the Jenny Lind area, the San Andres areas, we're preparing for localized flooding. So we've got sandbagged locations spread out throughout the lower areas for the public to come and get in those situations. We ask them to prepare ahead of time instead of waiting until they're flooded to grab the bags. So if they foresee some issue in terms of flooding, go to these locations, pick the sandbags up, and we can replenish as needed. Also, we have a snow line, an updated daily snow line through our website. It's 754-6017, and it will give the public access to what's happening. It's not a minute by minute. It's usually a daily. Unless the storm gets out of control, then we'll change it as the storm goes. When we're working 24 hours, it does change, but we try to be ahead of the ball game and give them ample information. As we speak, we're trying to work on better ways to communicate with the public, and that seems to be one of our issues, trying to get the word out there ahead of time. So that's down the road. We're gonna work on these things. It's probably not going to happen right away, but by next season we'll have something in place to where people can do and go and access information immediately. So I thank you for your time, and thank you for your support as well.
I have a quick question for you. Given the amount of snow now,
yes.
Where are we putting the snow? I mean, are we getting to the point we can't plow roads because there's no place to, the berms are getting so high that we have no place to put the snow?
Well, we have a technique called crowding, and what we do is we use big wing plows and graders and dump trucks, and we try to crowd it into the right-of-ways. We do have loaders that take care of cul-de-sacs and stack it. We call it stacking. So, yes, and that's just the nature of the beast up there. The roads
do we
are narrow.
still have capacity to implement those kinds of solutions, or are we running out of capacity to do that?
We're not running out of capacity, no. I mean, we still have spots to put the snow,
Well, I would like to offer Marita's house. You can deposit all the snow there that you'd like.
If you go to my car, you will see a shovel in the back.
Well, we're going to
put it in Marita's driveway. We'll take care of the board business, the four of us down here.
Nice. Yeah, we do have places we can put it. We take full advantage of the breaks that we do get. We're working 24 hours, so when the sun comes out, those guys are working all night long. We had a situation. Now that you've asked, we had a situation last week. A phone call came in to me, and the lady was highly irritated that our snowplow change kept her up at night up there. So so we're getting it from we're getting it from both ends there. We're doing the best we can. We're going to work on some quieter chains next year and as well. But that's the nature of the beast.
That's our highest priority.
Yeah, quiet chains. Anyway, thanks again. And
well, thanks for the update.
All right.
I also have
Wait a minute,
a
hold
question
on.
and a comment.
I think there's some other questions up there. Let's go with Steve, and then we'll go with Darren.
A question and a comment. The question is, what are you anticipating for this next storm? What snow elevations and since you're putting sandbags up, I'm assuming you've got a fairly significant storm coming in. Is that?
Yeah. We're looking at very low snow levels, possibly down to the Murphys area again. with substantial rain down in the valley and runoff down in the valley. Yes, we just want to be ahead of the curve in terms of getting those things out there and getting the word out there. Yeah.
And the comment had to do with the Glencoe crew, who have been, there's not a lot of them, but
right.
What they've been able to accomplish up there has just been legion, and
absolutely.
We are thrilled with it. I don't think you've had many calls from
yeah.
that side of the county. That has to do with some portion of self-sufficiency, but also the great work that people have done. There's a whiner factor in another area that may be tormenting you a bit, but don't pay that much attention.
You're absolutely right, and I didn't mean to skip over your district up there with the Glencoe crew. They are doing an absolute phenomenal job for us as well.
Yeah.
Low staff. They're kind of the forgotten group, because we don't hear from them. We don't hear from the public up there. Like you said, they are self-sufficient and they do take care of business. They're used to having to drive an hour to the store, so they get enough supplies to hold them over in these situations.
But we're very well served as well, and we thank you.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it better.
I just wanted to add that I noticed that there was a stack of sandbags that were already pre-filled, in my estimation, probably 8 to 10 feet high across the street from the Shell station in the Rancho Calaveras La Cantena area right there. So, when I saw that, it was... I was proud of the county for that, and trying to be proactive because the streams were running really high on Sunday especially, and there has been flooding there in the past, as we all know. So luckily I was not aware. I didn't get any phone calls of any flooding, but I also didn't get any phone calls for people that said they needed sandbags, because apparently if they needed them they were already there, unbeknownst to me, which is awesome because that's the way it's supposed to work, right? I mean, I don't work for the road crew. Or I'm a supervisor, but I will get that phone call if that stuff isn't there. So I appreciate your dedication to preemptive, where it's possible.
And you can always use them as a bunker as well if things get bad down there.
I might need that from time to time.
All right, thank you very much.
When summer comes, we'll send the sandbags to Libya.
Well, you know what happens. This is historically what happens in the summertime. Those sandbags are used for horseshoe pits. Yeah, that's
Thank you. Any other public comments? If so, please come forward. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Leslie Gomes with Public Works. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce my consultant, Mr. Tony Powers with Dock and Engineering, to give a brief update of our bicycle safety training program.
Thank you, Leslie. So I should just sign in. Mr. Chair, members of the board, I was intrigued by your moment of silence at the beginning. It reminded me of something that I heard. I believe it was a Southern California legislator started out a meeting by saying, "I'd like to take a moment of silence for all those people stuck in traffic on the way to to the gym to ride their exercise bikes." Dock and Engineering is pleased to have the opportunity to work with county staff and the school districts to provide bike safety training to the children of Calaveras County. While bicycle safety may not be a typical offering of your average engineering consultant, we see it as a natural extension of the other safety-related transportation efforts that we do, and we're very excited about it, and we think it's no less important. Speaking of quotes, as I'm sure you're aware, Calaveras County is inextricably tied to Mr. Mark Twain, and particularly his tales of jumping frogs and things like that. But you may not be aware that Mr. Twain was also an early proponent of bike safety education, as evidenced by one of his less famous quotes from Taming the Bicycle, in which he said, "Get a bicycle. If you survive," I blew it. Sorry. "Get a bicycle." I better read it. "Get a bicycle. You will not regret it if you live." He, of course, was referring to the tendency of the early high-wheel bicyclists who were perched 6 feet off the ground to go flying over the handlebars and land on their head when they hit a rock. We are confident that with proper safety training and a helmet, your kids will not have the same problem, and they will not only live, they will live well, longer, and healthier lives because of it. With that, I'd like to briefly describe what we have in mind along with county staff. We have 8 bicycle safety training sessions, or rodeos as they're often referred, that will be held on Saturdays in April and May of this year. We have the first 2 facilities lined up and ready to go, and are currently in the process of nailing down the other 6. Our tentative schedule is as follows. We have April 9th, these are the 2 that we've confirmed, at Copperopolis Elementary School in the morning and Mark Twain Elementary School and Angels Camp in the afternoon. April 30th, West Point Elementary School in the morning and McCollum Hill Elementary School in the afternoon. May 7th, Hazel Fisher Elementary in Arnold in the morning and Albert Mickelson Elementary School in Murphys in the afternoon. And on May 14th, Valley Springs Elementary School in the morning and San Andreas Elementary School in the afternoon. Each one of these training sessions will last about 2 hours. All participants who complete the full session will be provided with a free helmet, other giveaways of bike safety, nature, and a certificate of completion. All sessions will be led by a League of American Bicyclists certified instructor, or an LCI. I'm the lead instructor, and I bring you 20 years of bicycle commuting experience, another 10 years of advocating for safe bicycle facilities and bicycle safety, and actually presenting bicycle safety training at both schools and to adults. The sessions are open to all Calaveras County citizens, 6 years of age and older, but the bike rodeo format is really geared towards the 6 to 11-year-old age groups, and that's what we're looking to see. Sessions include helmet fitting, bicycle safety checks, bicycle safety instruction, and then a number of on-bike skills practice sessions that they will do, or activities. Participants are expected to bring their own bike, and the sessions are free to all participants. In coordination with Public Works, we'll be advertising dates, times, and locations starting on March 29th. We'll do this through newspaper ads, informational flyers that will go to the schools, bike shops, and other locations. And we will be putting together a website that has additional information on the sessions, as well as general bike safety information and a pre-registration option, which will be encouraged. Volunteers are being solicited from agencies and organizations, including the CHP, the Sheriff's Office, Calaveras County Council of Governments, bicycle organizations, local businesses, and some of our own friends and employees up north from here. With that, I'd like to conclude by noting that our team is very excited about this project because all of our key staff are avid bicyclists who relish the opportunity to use their professional skills to share their passion for cycling and for cycling safety with the next generation. Happy to take any questions. And with that, I thank you for the opportunity to work with you.
What we need you to do is to come up with a 20-person bicycle we can put a snowplow in front of.
It's funny you should mention that. I have a 5-person bicycle that I've used to cart my kids around.
Good for you.
Haven't needed to put a plow on it just yet.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah. Tony, could you tell me again, on April 9th, Copperopolis in the morning, afternoon, Mark Twain? Was that it?
April 9th, Copperopolis and Mark Twain, yes.
30th, West Point, Moke Hill.
Yep.
7th, Hazel Fisher, Michelson.
Yep.
14th, Valley Springs, San Andreas.
Yes, and those were in the memo that staff sent you a couple days ago.
Okay.
And
So
only the first 2 of those we have the facilities reserved
Okay.
for. The other, the reservations went in yesterday, and we'll make sure.
Was there any inquiry into whether or not one could be done? This basically represents all of the K through 6 sites in the county, minus one, which is in my neighborhood, which is Jenny Lind Elementary. So I'm just wondering if there was a request for use and it was denied, or if there was or if it was requested or if it was requested at all, because there are 2 elementary schools in the greater Valley Springs area, and Valley Springs Elementary is 6 miles away from my home, so it's a fairly good distance. I just wondered if there was any...
Our scope is to provide 8 training sessions spread geographically through the county. So in working with staff, we sort of located the areas that we thought fairly well covered and being limited to the 8 sites. We would be happy to add a site if we, if that was the desire of the board. But we felt that that was the best distribution that had a site in proximity to each one. And Jenny Lind versus Valley Springs, I don't remember that we had a particular reason we picked one over the other than I think it was a recommendation from staff. Is that correct? Yeah.
The thing I was wondering about too, I mean, if one had to be decided over the other, Jenny Lind has a very large paved blacktop surface. It's flat with an island in the middle. I mean, it would be perfect for that. And I just don't, in my mind, recall any I mean, the parking is pretty limited at Valley Springs Elementary. So in the scope of things, in trying to conduct something like this, depending on how many people you hope to show up, I mean, it sounds kind of self-serving maybe because Jenny Lind's closer to where I live. I'm not going to be participating in the bicycle event. I have
we would
my
be
own
happy to
helmet
see you
and
there.
several bicycles. Yeah, I hope to be there. But I'm just thinking in terms of being able to actually accomplish what you want to do. Jenny Lind is a newer school and has a much larger paved area where you could conduct those exercises. So
I don't see any problem with Valley Springs on that. Plenty of parking, and there's plenty of open blacktop space to conduct this
Sounds like
seminar.
They'll be stacking snow there, Gary.
No, there's a bigger place over apparently than Jenny Lind.
Sounds like this is something for the board to work out. I am happy to discuss this further with staff and consider that.
I don't see a need to. I think you've already advertised, and I've already, after the memo, advertised that it's going to be in Valley Springs. So.
I'd like to chime in on the same subject. West Point may be close to Railroad Flat as the crow flies, but there's a level F road in between. I would hope that at least some provisions would be made for the railroad kids to take advantage of this, and that would go not through us but the school district. And given the transportation issues, which include buses not being able to travel that level F road, you may want to add a site there.
And how would we pay for this, gentlemen, if we keep adding sites?
Take it out of the snow removal fund. I'm trying to be helpful.
So that's the reason for the moment of silence earlier. Perfect.
There we go. We'll get an answer to that question.
Unfortunately, we only had sufficient funds to provide 8 bicycle trainings at this time. In future years, if money becomes available to do more bicycle safety trainings, we will do more at other locations. However, at this time, we picked 8 locations that covered the main regions.
Okay, I think we should go.
I'm just suggesting that we work with the school district to see whether they can get the other schools involved in that event.
Flyers will be taken to all schools,
Great.
regardless of the training being at their locations or not.
Thank you. Okay, other board comments. Chair is open for a motion.
Motion, public comment.
That was public comment. Excuse me. Okay. Other public
We
comments.
can make up a motion, Tom.
I'm Earl Moore from Valley Springs, and this is relevant to item 8 on the agenda.
Well, we're going to get to item 8. Why don't you save it for item 8?
Okay, well, this is just an engineering comment.
Okay. We're trying to do things that are not on the agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board.
Good morning, Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. Just a quick comment and an announcement. Home health care is the fastest growing industry in America. That's because a bunch of people like me, 60, 65, we're starting to fall apart, and we don't want to go into rest homes, and we need care. I've seen a lot of people struggling because as you know, our industry is under attack. And one of the options that we will have as Americans is private pay home health care. And we already do for people that are for people that are not low income. Anyway, one way to address that, next Sunday, as we have every month, our home care union, SEIU-UHW, is sponsoring a pizza night in Valley Springs at the Pizza Factory. We're going to be hearing a presentation from a lady named Beth Platts, who has a program called In-Home Care that serves Calaveras, Amador, and El Dorado, to find out what the home health industry is like at the private pay. So we are inviting anybody that's interested to come out, 5 o'clock this Sunday at the Valley Springs Pizza Factory on Vista del Lago. The pizza is paid for by our union, one of the ways we can get back some of our dues. And we'd like to invite anybody, any providers, any recipients, or any supporters of the home health care program to come and share a pizza pie with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? I'm going to take this as the last public comment, and then I'm going to go to item 9, and then we'll return to public comments.
I'll be real quick, promise.
Okay.
My name is Peter Race, Valley Spring. Long as we were talking about kids' safety, generally in school, it's been brought this issue up a couple of weeks ago or a month ago. Getting Caltrans to move the speed sign, increasing speed right before Hagen and stuff. They were not aware of it. COG was aware of it that time, but there was no communication. As long as we have a young lady here from Public Works, has there been any action taken to secure the safety of parents and children coming out from Hagen Road to Highway 26?
Yeah, we'll let the supervisor respond to you on that.
It's all his fault, by the way.
Okay.
And another thing I'd like to mention,
okay.
I'm sorry to hear that global warming hasn't quite kicked up in some of those districts, but I'm sure it's coming. And any thought about creating a CSA around your district to snow removal? We have it in Rancho Calaveras, CSA or CSD, whatever you want. Isn't it about time that maybe some CSD can create it on your district for snow removal? It seems to be coming every year. Nobody mentioned how much it costs and how many people is being served. I'm sure it's well deserved. But maybe you better think about CSA or CSD for those snow removal activities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a comment, Darren, and then we'll go to item 9.
Yeah, just that was something that came up quite a while ago about the signage in regard to making people aware of the school zone or coming up on that. And because it's a state highway, it has a little bit more. It's a little bit trickier than normal because of that. To my knowledge, where it sets right now is that I believe in anybody that's here that knows different can correct me if I'm wrong, but my knowledge of it is that the county has offered to provide the labor to install the signs, but that the signs have to be purchased by the school district, and they don't have money. That's my understanding of it right now. Okay. So what I'd like to do in moving forward with that is to try to find a funding source. I mean, it couldn't cost all that much money for the signs. I mean, at least one on each way coming towards the school. If somebody could grant that to the school, then they give it to then the Public Works can install it. So.
Okay, well, you'll follow up on that.
I'll follow up on that. And I know Steve and I are supposed to meet with Superintendent Campbell on a couple different issues regarding collaboration between the county and the school district. So that's something we can add to our list, right?
It grows longer by the day.
Yeah, it grows longer by the day. But, yeah, we're working on it. So.
Okay, I'm going to go to item 6 and then back to public comments. Item 6 is a minute order authorizing the district attorney to execute a contract with Pacific Educational Services Incorporated to operate pre-filing misdemeanor diversion program. Good morning. Hi, Barbara.
I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation, so Dana's going to go ahead and set that up for me. Barbara Uke, District Attorney. I am here to request authorization to enter into a contract with Pacific Educational Services. Are you telling me to slow down?
No, I'm just...
Oh, wait, somebody.
No, that's fine.
Pacific Educational Services to run our new Personal Responsibility Program. Like I said, I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation, but first I'd like to introduce Walter Stockman to you. He is the president of Pacific Educational Services Incorporated.
Good morning.
He'll be available to answer any questions you might have about the program itself.
Okay.
Barbara, it was the right tower.
I'm sorry?
It was the right computer.
Oh, was it finally?
Yes,
Good.
thank
I'm glad.
you very much.
Did you bring me a piece of paper?
Thanks.
Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and get started. We'll catch up with the PowerPoint. As you know, the DA's office has gone into fiscal year 10-11 with a 24% budget cut. That was partially due to the county's budget crisis, a 17.5% cut we did at county direction. The rest of it, bringing up to the 24%, was due to the loss of our child abuse vertical prosecution grant due to the fluctuations in the VLF. So we took a pretty hard hit this year. We're down 2 attorneys, 2 investigators, 1 support staff person, and we realized pretty quickly at the start of the fiscal year that we weren't going to be continuing to do business as usual. We had to address our caseloads and based on the staffing issues. So we started looking around to see what some other counties were doing to deal with their staffing shortages. It's obviously a statewide problem, affects multiple agencies, not just DA's offices, but we looked around to see what some other counties had come up with. What we decided we would do and what would be the best fit for us in our county is a pre-filing misdemeanor diversion program. It's an innovative idea. It's kind of a new thing. Stanislaus County is doing it, and through Pacific Educational Services, and we worked with a few different vendors to see who would be the best fit for us, and we decided that Pacific Educational was the best provider for us. Now we're getting close. Now what a pre-filing diversion program is it allows us to handle cases without the use of extensive attorney resources and staff resources and court resources. It's actually going to allow us to deal with some of these low-level misdemeanor cases with defendants who are deserving of a chance to get through the process without a conviction. This is only defendants who have absolutely no criminal history. And the program will have them do an educational class that targets the underlying conduct and pay restitution if there is any restitution that is owed to any victim in the case. The PowerPoint's really good, so I'm hoping that we can get it going here. But let me go ahead. Procedurally, what will happen with a case is our attorneys will still be reviewing every single case on a case-by-case basis. We are the ones who are deciding what cases will go forward in the program, what cases will go through in the traditional sense by going to court. The attorneys will review the cases.
What types of misdemeanors are we talking about?
We're talking about very low-level misdemeanors, like drunken publics, 415s, which are loud and unreasonable noise or fighting in public. We're talking about first-time petty thefts that are under a certain dollar amount. We're talking about maybe minors in possession of alcohol, the shoulder tap cases, things like that. And when we're looking at a case, we're looking at the individual as well. So kind of your classic example would be maybe an 18-year-old who is caught with alcohol. Okay, instead of sending them to court where they've got to pay fees and fines and maybe spend a day in jail and that's it, we send them to a class, perhaps an alcohol class or a life skills class, whatever is we see as the cause of the problem. If there was restitution for something in the case, they have to pay that, and they can move on and right their wrong without a criminal conviction, which potentially could hobble them as far as employment opportunities. We also have cases, for instance, a young person, maybe 20 years old, is trying to get in the military. They're out partying with their friends and they get maybe into a fight or picked up for drunken public. Those are the type of people that we want to be able to address their conduct because it needs to be addressed, but not hobble them.
Would would a sexual offense?
No, no,
That's okay.
absolutely not.
Because we had a case,
Absolutely
there was a
not.
case in Sacramento a few years ago. I come from an educational background. There was a kid that was 18 years old that decided he was going to go old school, 60 style, and streak at his graduation. And he was 18 at the time. So when he threw off his robe and ran naked, and they eventually caught him, nobody thought that it would go to the extent that it was, where this, because he was 18, he was legally an adult, and he was charged with a sex offense, which would be a registerable, stigma for him for the rest of his life. We'd have to report on any job application, et cetera, that he's, registered as a sex offender for streaking at his high school graduation. So apparently that doesn't qualify. That's beyond the misdemeanor benchmark, I guess. But
It's not on our list of offenses currently. We're the ones who decide what types of charges should be eligible for the program, and then, of course, we look at whether or not the defendant is deserving. Currently, that's not on the list.
That's just a very unfortunate glitch in the system where, it fits the description of the offense. However, it's like, nobody would think that an 18-year-old kid that streaked at his graduation would be a...
I would say that requiring lifetime registration as a sex offender would be unfair in that type of case,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, it seems.
In my opinion. There's sex offenses and then there's sex offenses.
Yeah.
I agree.
Depends on what he looked like.
That did not matter to you, Gary.
Let us proceed.
Oh, that was Tom's comment.
I think we had it for a second.
Diane,
Just
do you give this to Barbara?
Just while we're waiting, Barbara, my first teaching position was in South Stockton, and we had a program. It was a diversion between the school district and the county for people, a similar type scenario where they may have been picked up for something that was an expellable offense, like drug possession, weapon possession, and they looked at that person and said, well, if we drop this person to the county, the likelihood that they're going to come back into the regular school district is highly unlikely. The numbers, the statistics bore out. So they put them on a contract for 6 to 12 months where they could, go to this kind of like a, holding tank type of place. They would either go from there back to the regular school if they fulfilled their contract, or they would go to the county or to juvenile detention. So I'm interested in hearing about this, and I'm glad that you're bringing it forward, not only as a cost-saving measure for our court system and for the taxpayers, but also there are legitimate people who fall into these categories where maybe something could be done. Like you said with the military thing, I know a lot of young people, and that's one of the red flags, for potential military services. So.
And what we find is that while they're on probation, which will happen if they go through the court process, they actually can't get into the military. We're contacted by recruiters all the time trying to find out about the status of cases because they're ready to go, but if they're on probation, they can't get in. This type of program will allow them to finish up what they need to finish up, take a class. Currently, we're going to be offering classes in theft, anger management, alcohol and drugs, and life skills. Hopefully allow them to learn something and pay restitution and move on with no cost to the taxpayers because we're having this outside company run the program for us.
Chris Brown would probably like to be able to take advantage of that today after his rant yesterday in New York. The musician.
Oh, okay.
Apparently he's got some anger management issues.
Are we ready? Maybe. Hey.
Okay. Well, what my attorneys will be looking at, should the board approve the program, is, first of all, is this an eligible crime? When a report comes in, is it an eligible crime? If the answer is not, then we will file a case. If it is an eligible crime, the next step is looking at whether or not the defendant is deserving. The first obvious thing is whether or not they have a record. Now, sometimes people might not have a record, but we know they've been kind of around the block and we just haven't caught up with them. We're going to use our discretion on whether or not they deserve a chance in those cases. If they are not deserving, we're going to file the case and we'll go through the traditional means. If they are deserving, the next step is sending them to the program and seeing if they enroll. If they don't enroll in a timely manner, it's about a 15-day window for them to enroll in the program. The program will contact us and we'll file the case. If they do enroll, then they have to complete the program, which will be taking the educational class or classes that we've determined and paying any restitution that is owed to any victim. If they don't do that, we find out and we file the case. If they do, then they're done and everything has been handled. The defendant can move on. The victim's been satisfied, and with no extra resources of the county or the court.
Is it expunged from the record?
It is not on the record because there is no conviction. Yeah. Now, the arrest with citation might show on their record. That's a different issue. They work with the agency on getting those erased. But since there's no conviction, there's nothing to expunge. And that's kind of the benefit for it and why we are very carefully looking at the types of crimes and the types of defendants we'd be referring. The other issue is that the classes are interactive classes, and we don't want to have more experienced criminals in the classes. We'll kind of taint the pool, if you will, help people maybe learn more criminal ways and not be a good environment. This is for just the very low-level crimes and your first-time offenders to keep it at a good level with the education and the interaction in the classes. And people are taking it seriously.
So when the military looks or makes phone calls or those type of things into these people's background, do they is an arrest enough for disqualification, or is a conviction that they're looking for that would disqualify?
In my experience, the convictions are what gets people. I don't know what the military has access to when they're looking at someone's eligibility. What we get questions about is, are they still on probation? Is there a conviction? Are they still on probation? Yeah. And if it's a low-level offense, sometimes the military will still take them sometimes. But there is that stumbling block, and then there's that year and a half or 3-year waiting period. A lot can happen in that period of time when someone is trying to move on and better their lives if you're standing in the way.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, I do want to just tell you briefly about the workload comparison for us and the other agencies that we affect when we do work. Without the personal responsibility program, once we file a case, we have to go to court on it. Frequently, the public defender is getting appointed. They've got to go to court on it. We're using up court time. We're using up clerk time. Your average case, sometimes people will plead right at arraignment on their first court appearance, but sometimes you're talking 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 or more court appearances, even on a simple low-level case. They can take a couple weeks. They can take almost a year to go through. So there's a lot of resources once we start the ball rolling by filing a case. If we have to issue subpoenas, that's anywhere from 1 witness to 5 witnesses. Each subpoena takes 3 pieces of paper. It takes my staff time, copy time, and it takes the sheriff's office time, because the sheriff's office is the one who has to serve the subpoenas. If we do a trial, that's obviously court time and citizen time for the jury. An average misdemeanor case is going to take us a day to a day and a half. So you can see there's a lot of extra time once we file a complaint. At the end, if we get a conviction, what's going to happen to the defendant is they're going to pay some fines, they're going to maybe do some jail time, and they're going to have to pay restitution. And probation department is currently the one that processes all the restitution, so it takes their resources to collect it and to disperse it. With the program for these low-level cases, all we need to do is send Pacific Educational Services an email, and they take it from there. They contact the defendant, run through the whole program. If they're successful, the defendant will have paid fees for the program. They've gotten an education and they've paid restitution, and Pacific Educational Services will be the ones to collect the restitution and to distribute it. So you can see it will save a lot of work all the way around and not push off any work on any other department. Okay. The benefits of the personal responsibility program to my office should be pretty clear by now. It's going to reduce our misdemeanor caseload, which allows my attorneys more time to focus on the more serious cases. It allows us to address the low-level cases without attorney resources and without court resources. The benefit to the public, there is no cost to the taxpayers for the program. We do see lower recidivism rates with people who have gone through the program, and I'll show you that a little bit later. And ultimately, when the program gets going, they will hire local. The instructors for the programs, once the program gets going, will be locals. The benefits to defendants for this program is it gives them an opportunity to right their wrong and turn their life around without a conviction that could affect future employment opportunities. The cost of the program is actually lower than the average court fines. So there's a little bit of a benefit there. The benefit to probation is that they will not have to be collecting restitution and distributing it in these little classic cases. There is a benefit to the jail population issue. We're not talking a huge benefit. These defendants are people who would only be ordered to do maybe 1 to 10 days in jail. But every little bit helps, I think, especially the in and out that goes on when you have these people who are ordered to do these small sentences. There's a benefit to the court and the public defender, of course, with lower caseloads for them as well. Pacific Educational Services, I want to give you a little bit of their background because that is the vendor that we chose. They've been in business since 1982. Their focus has been on providing courts with alternative sentencing options. Their program focuses on educational awareness and accountability for offenders. They will be answering directly to my office weekly on case statuses and how defendants are going, so that if something happens and they fail out, that we can file the case in a timely manner. They currently run alternative sentencing programs in 8 different counties, including Sacramento and Orange County. Like I said before, they are currently doing the same exact program for us that they're doing in Stanislaus County. They run educational programs in 13 counties. They hold about 400 classes per month, and at any given time, there's about 4,000 people in their programs. Now, the recidivism rate, this was a very interesting statistic that they shared with us. They did a real apples-to-apples comparison on recidivism rates. They took people they looked at 2,000 cases and took defendants who would have been eligible for a program had it existed, and followed those people a year later. The recidivism rate for those people who did not have the benefit of the program was 21%. Now, with the program, those same types of people, first-time offenders with these low-level crimes, the recidivism rate was only 6.4%. So we're very encouraged that this is also going to have a very good effect on our recidivism rate. So we do feel that the program is truly a win-win solution for our current staffing shortage issue, and we hope that you will approve our contract. Are there any other questions for me or for Mr. Stockman about the company?
I have one question.
Go ahead.
You may have said this, I may not have caught it, but where are the classes going to be held?
They will be held in Calaveras County. Okay. I don't know that we have a set location yet.
And what size generally are the classes? Do you wait till you get a certain amount of people?
We do, and I believe the number is going to be 10 for a class.
10 to 30 is the range that we operate.
Please introduce yourself, and we are of record, so you need to speak into the mic.
My name is Walter Stockman. I'm the president of Pacific Educational Services. We try to have a range of 10 to 30 people. Less than 10 is not really efficient, and more than 30 is not really efficient. So we're currently doing classes in, as the district attorney mentioned, in Stanislaus County on a regular basis. So that's an option if the referral base is not as on a given month as we expect. There are some particular circumstances, such as somebody entering the military, where they've got to get a class done now. And so we might have a class scheduled, for instance, in Sacramento County, Placer County, El Dorado County, or Stanislaus County, Merced County, that they want to get, and they can go that next weekend. So that's an option. But eventually, when the referral rate gets up to speed, we will have classes locally here in the county. We haven't selected a location yet, but we will. And we've always been able to find some place that will accommodate us, church, schools, what have you, hotels, motels. And we will rent that facility and then hire and train local teachers is our norm. Every place that we currently run this program, we have local teachers teaching the program.
Very good.
Thank you. Any other board comments? Any public comments? Go ahead, Steve.
I do have a comment. I really want to thank you for bringing this stuff forward. I think it's exactly what we need to begin to think about as we face these kind of budget crises. There's not a way to cut our way out of this without having program adjustments unless we'd like to put the public at risk. And this deals with a number of different issues. It crosses 5 departments. It saves, while it was triggered by your short staffing and budget cuts, it also is dealing with the same issues in 4 other departments. So I really laud that broad-based thing. It's innovative, it's out of the box, but it's also been tried elsewhere and it's proven. So when we talk about the biggest expense in the justice system, part of it is an overloaded case. We're bogging down the entire system with cases that might be handled better otherwise, and we're dealing with a recidivism rate which is huge. So we're not, while we think we're punishing people, they keep coming back to us for some reason or another. If this actually reduces recidivism from the people that are in by 2/3, it strikes me that we're actually, I guess we're covering a number of problems in one single program. But finally, the idea of putting restitution as part of this is something that we've been trying to deal with for a long time. If you commit a crime against people, you ought to pay and make up for what you did to them. And if that's the accountability part of this, I can't say enough good about that. So I'm really pleased to see this, and I'm hoping the same kind of thinking catches on out there, because we have so many other departments that could help each other out by thinking in that broad way and trying to get something that's this innovative and this comprehensive. So thanks so much for bringing it forward. I'm thrilled.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really born out of necessity, but we worked on this for months trying to come up with a solution to our problem. We wanted to make sure that we didn't push off anything else or create any work for any other departments. It kind of defeats the purpose. And we do feel that it is a win-win for everybody. So we're pretty excited about the program.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Any other comments at the board? Okay. Any public comments?
George Fry. Some of you know that I'm a retired state parole agent for the California Youth Authority. I spent many years as, quote, a social worker in a law enforcement agency. And many of my counterparts were all about, let's just roll them up and lock them up. And my ability and those other folks that were parole agents that had the same thinking process, I just want to encourage the board to support this. It is a win-win. I've been in specialized counseling programs where I've worked with juveniles that were sent to the California Youth Authority. And if we don't do rehabilitation, and we're not going to reduce the recidivism rate. And I like what the district attorney said about the fact that they're going to screen folks that have a propensity to be a little more criminally sophisticated and not have them in the same room at the same time with other people who probably, fortunately or unfortunately, have a clean record. And so I just would, I applaud the district attorney for being proactive and having this win-win situation. And I hope that all of you will likewise see the need for this so that we can turn our young folks around. You know, she was talking about PC 647 A and B, drunken, disorderly, and 415, and some of the rest of them. Those are the kinds of things, those charges are the kinds of things that merit being in this special program so that they have an opportunity to move on in their lives and be productive citizens in the community. I thank you for your time.
Bring it back to the board then.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the district attorney to enter into contract with Pacific Educational Services. I would also make one additional comment before entertaining a second, which is that when we talk about financing in our board packets, I think that's been very helpful in understanding what the cost is. But when we have something that has an enormous savings, I would like to see a report on fiscal impacts that would indicate all the departments that are going to benefit from this. I know it's hard to predict the future, but it's helpful for me to see all of that, which we did in the report, but be nice in the past.
I think we have an item coming up that's going to do that.
Yes, I've seen that.
I will second that motion.
I have a motion by Supervisor Walensky and a second by Supervisor Tosinelli. Do I have further board discussion? All in favor, so indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Is there anybody that has additional public comments to make?
Mr. Chair, I'd like the chair to pull item 9 on the regular agenda. The governor, the legislature actually passed legislation, and the governor actually has signed legislation to reenact the gas tax swap, so the item is no longer necessary.
Okay, let the record show that item 9 has been pulled from the agenda. As being there are no additional public comments, then that completes item 4. And we'll move forward to item 5, which is a resolution authorizing changes to the position control list for the building department for fiscal year 2010-2011. This is a human resources and risk management issue. Francine, welcome to the board.
Good morning. Francine Osborne, Director, Human Resources and Risk Management. The item before you today is a matter that the board reviewed at the mid-year report. At that time, it was brought to the board's attention that the building department did not meet the projected revenue. That was experiencing a revenue shortfall. There were staff reductions proposed at that time. The building official, in a presentation to the board, felt that there was potential permit revenue, if prioritized, that he could go out and get and make up that difference. The board approved funding the building department and postponing the staff reductions in order for the building official to do a more in-depth review of that potential revenue and asked that it be brought back before them once that determination was made. I'm back before you today. The building official has done that in-depth review and has determined that even in the best case scenario, prioritizing the potential permit revenue would not make up that shortfall. So in order to lessen the impact of the general fund contingencies, the staffing reductions are back before the board at this time. The department, the majority of its expenses are in the form of salary and benefits. And so therefore, any savings that could be achieved would be in the form of staff reductions. So the proposal before the board is to lay off 1 plan checker and 1 building inspector and reduce the remaining building department staff to 80% time. With the last couple of years and staff reductions and the economy, staff has looked at all alternatives because nobody really wants to reduce staff again. There are no other alternatives other than the possibility with the 6 employees that would be reduced to the 80% time. There is a program that we've looked at on numerous times, which is the EDD Workshare program. And I've outlined the specifics of that program. I'm not going to go into detail for you. But we did look at what would that mean for these employees. And we actually meet the qualifications and it does work. We have 5 remaining pay periods left. So we looked at, okay, now we have to take a look at what really are we getting from the savings of the layoffs, the cost of the unemployment, the cost of the reductions, and Workshare program. And that's outlined in your packet before you. As you can see, we took it out a couple of years to try to make sure that we're not doing this again next year in the building department if revenues continue to decrease. So as you can see, in the first year, the savings and then the costs, the result is fairly minimal in the savings. But in year 2 and 3, they're substantial. So what it really means is that those employees going to 80%, because of the savings in year 2 and 3, can actually be brought back to full time at the beginning of next fiscal year. So really the goal of the Workshare program is sort of to try to delay the inevitable of layoffs and allow employees to look for work, look for other work before they're eventually laid off. Had we had to make a decision to continue staff at the 80% level into next fiscal year, the recommendation may have been different. But because we're only talking about 5 pay periods and the amount of work necessary to utilize it within the time frame that we have, the employees are eligible till the end of this fiscal year for unemployment benefits anyway. So it doesn't really fiscally make sense. So the item before the board today is to really make a decision on to either move forward with the proposed staffing reductions or to continue to use general fund contingencies to fund the department till the end of the fiscal year. And that is not recommended by staff. Staff is recommending that you move forward with the proposed staffing plan, which would mean that employees would receive layoff notices effective April 8th, which would provide them a 16-day notice if you move forward with it.
The administrative office supports this recommendation.
Yes, I want to point out to the board, too, that this does not completely erase the projected revenue shortfall for the building department. In fact, to the tune of about a little over $48,000 would still need to supplement the building department's expenditures if, in fact, revenues don't pick up between now and June 30.
Okay, but as Francine said, the main savings is in year 2 and 3.
That's correct.
Which will then kick in.
And that's outlined in your packet,
Right.
showing.
As outlined in our packet. Is there are any board comments? Steve?
I have a couple of questions. I'm not sure I'm finding the amount that people thought might be collected if these people worked on collecting the fees that were so far uncollected. What was the total amount of outstanding?
Actually, the administrative office and the building official sat down and put forth all those costs. I do not have them in front of me. Did you bring those?
With any luck, I have it. The outstanding work that the illicit work that was done that we red tagged that is an ongoing process that continues to always be a problem. There was about $30,000 in that if we could get that money. That was the one that we could pursue. There was also plans that are in our office that are sitting there waiting to be picked up, and we can't really force people to come in and get them until they want to pick them up. And then there was another reinstatement of permits, people that have let their permits lapse. The total of that came up to several hundred, I think it was 200, actually it was about $200,000. Maybe even more than that. But the problem was the actual retrievable amount that we're hoping to close the gap was around $30,000. But what I think the coup de grace here is the February reports for housing starts is another abysmal failure that went down another 22%. So the trend here continues to take us out behind the woodshed all the day long, and we cannot keep up. It's just the gap is too big.
All right, I'm just trying to figure out the math, so maybe somebody can help me with this. It might be outside the department, but there were a couple of other things that we were talking about in the county, and the idea being to maybe have interagency, similar to what we just saw up here with the DA, that there might be other outstanding things to collect. For instance, we had a report on TOT and the uncollected TOT and whether that might also benefit the county. What I see here is that we're saving a net in the first year, or the remaining part of this fiscal year, of $11,657. And I guess my question is, can we, if we were to spend that $11,657, and the people who we were saving the money for were working on the two things that would be gaining revenue toward that $30,000 or the uncollected TOT or both, would that be a sound investment Or did you judge those to be unfeasible and therefore we're getting this? That's the first question. The second question is on I don't see in the recommendation the inclusion of the California Job Sharing Unemployment Act, although there's much in the narrative. Would we be authorizing because this requires the people in the department who are affected to agree to this, and I would imagine this is subject to collective bargaining. Are we being asked today to authorize exploring that with the staff and authorizing our HR department to proceed if it were acceptable?
On the first question that you have, actually the savings is $19,224 in the first year. I think your question is a good question. I just think that the timing of this issue with 5 pay periods left, it's already been delayed since the mid-year review. And so with the amount of time and the other alternatives, it's not anticipated that it would make up that difference. And then as far as the work share program, we do meet all the qualifications, and there is a lot of discussion about it because we've looked at this program. We aren't recommending it for the 5 pay period program, mainly because of the timing issue again. Because one, we'd need to get, as explained in the packet, written approval from the union. Then we would need to actually prepare and submit the plan, wait approval from EDD for that plan, and then there's a 1-week delay before employees can actually start collecting the benefits. And so they're eligible for them now once we do the layoffs. So had we been doing this on a long-term basis, because of the savings in the second year, it will only be till the end of this fiscal year, and then those employees will turn to full-time. It didn't really, with all the additional work, the weekly certificates, and the time frame within which we can't predict how long it will be before EDD supports it, and you can't backdate the program. So it did not seem prudent to move forward with it when they're eligible for it anyway. You know, over a long-term period, it does make more sense, but it's not necessary in this situation because the 2 layoffs in the second and third year will actually help the department from having to deal with further revenue shortfall, as he explained, because we know that there are continued shortfalls.
To my knowledge, there are several different projects that are either being resurrected, things that were on the books that were allowed already that are, either being changed slightly in their scope and direction in terms of some residential applications. There's also been some people who have been pursuing, very proactively to get things done. I'm aware of, the Mr. Coe's property out in Paloma that they have a lot of different ideas for, and there are some of those things like that where I know that there's going to be a need for those people, and I just feel like we're so focused on the cutting, rather than focusing on what we can do there's a pent-up demand. I mean, even in this horrible economy, there are projects out there that are just begging to be adopted and begging to allow to transpire that will bring tax revenue, provide opportunities for the building department to do inspections and collect fees. And when I see these things come forward, I'm thinking about these people losing their jobs. I'm thinking about these people that want to do these businesses or construction projects. And it just seems to me that the focus is in the wrong area. I think the focus needs to be on developing revenue. And there are people who are willing to provide revenue, to make these things go forward. They believe and are willing to put their own capital in an entrepreneurial spirit to develop these projects and therefore create money to be collected in the form of fees for services and permits, et cetera, that the county grants for these particular projects. So, I knowing what I do know about those projects and the amount of money that it could generate that would help save these people's jobs, I really don't have a good feeling about this.
I think that you need to, it's your choice. You can continue, as stated in the packet, to continue to fund the department. In the packet, you'll see that the shortfall is $105,000. The savings of the staffing plan saves $56,000. So there's still a remaining deficit of the $48,776. So in what you're describing, will that fill that gap? And
the City of Angels had just approved a 96,000 square foot big box construction that's going to happen at some point. I mean,
before the end of the fiscal year?
It's the city. They'll get the revenues. But Darren's right. There are two projects. One is a seniors housing project, and the other is an affordable housing project, both of which are planned for Valley Springs, as I understand it, that are being pursued with some gusto. The question is whether that would have any impact in this or the next fiscal year, and what's your assessment of that, and would these people be needed at the time, and would they be recalled for that purpose if it did materialize?
And I really think that's a question for the department head.
Yes.
I'm bringing forward the recommendations from the department head who did that in-depth review and sat down with staff and went over all the possibilities of potential. So if there's something additional, I defer that question.
My
to
main
the
question is
department head.
if we did get those, if those projects went through and the need developed, they have a right to recall, I believe, and I wanted to make sure that that was on the radar as well.
I mean, if the business picks up, you call them back.
Absolutely.
I mean,
There's no
Right.
business now.
Clearly.
I do have a question.
Go ahead,
though.
Gary.
It's talked about 105,000, but basically, from what you've given us here, we're talking about a net savings of $19,224 for the two staff people. If those two people stayed on, would you still be able to realize the reduction of $29,000 in services and supplies? And obviously, you would still need the two vehicles, so there would be an additional $8,000 there. But are you still looking, if you kept those two staff people on, of reducing your service and supplies of $29,000?
Yeah, that has been in the equation all along, that the transferring the two vehicles and the reduction in service supplies has been figured into the mix. We're still short with that part of it calculated.
How did you come to the $8,000 for the two vehicles?
That was using the WAG system on two older vehicles that we have that we figured two of them might be worth about $4,000 apiece.
But the reduction on the maintenance and the gas for those and so forth, is that also added into this $8,000?
It was when we started with $2.90 a gallon. Now that it's $4 and it's going up, it's starting to eradicate that as well. So it seems like we're circling the drain here, and it's the life ring is, I'm worried about what's going to happen in June, at the end of June, when we're done with what this is going to help us get through to June. June, I hope we're not doing this again, because all the indications that I've seen so far, nationally, locally, and with the association with the other chapters that I'm involved with, there's no hope in sight at this point in time, at least in the immediate future. And I think this is what we're dealing with, is the immediate future right now, to solve this shortfall, and hopefully things can come back, and we do have a callback where we can bring these people back.
Are you done? Jeff, would it, you may remember, I know there was a lot of people there, but I attended a Calaveras Builders Association meeting in which you were the guest speaker. I believe that was in December or January. and the main topic of the day was the new California mandate for sprinklers.
That's correct.
For new construction. Would it be possible to take these two people possibly that stand to lose their job and be able to train them so that they could satisfy that requirement? I know that that's a new certification as of January 1, that people have to have those indoor sprinkler systems. They have to have people who possess a special certification issued by the state or credential of some sort to sign off on those sprinkler systems. Is there a way that we could, perhaps train these people to have that certificate, send them to training to have that certificate, so that, perhaps the building that's going in or things that are happening that are in Angel City, it's not county particularly, but they will have to seek somebody with expertise and proper credentialing to sign off on those sprinkler mandates for new construction by the state. Would it be possible for us to be ahead of the curve instead of paying someone exorbitant amount of monies or people that are doing construction to pay someone exorbitant amount of monies to come in from out of the area? If we could perhaps train these people to be certified in that way, and then it's a basic economics 101, supply and demand. I'm assuming that anything that gets built right now, those people are paying dearly for that certification. And not to say that anyone's gouging, it's a supply and demand issue. And as Steve mentioned, there are some senior housing, some affordable housing. I'm watching one. It's almost near completion, at least outside framing and stuff down in Valley Springs, and they're moving forward with that. If we were able to get these people to training to become certified, so that we could utilize them in that capacity to generate income as a certified whatever for the new sprinkler mandate, would that help at all? And the second thing is, the last time that you came before us at the mid-years, you told a story about a guy who was building a deck illegally. You guys red tagged it, and he told you to pound sand and get off his property. So with two people less on the staff, I don't see how that's going to get any better. In fact, it seems like it's going to be a free-for-all, let people just going nuts doing whatever they want to do, with no one to check them. That's a very serious concern for me. So the number one thing was, could we train people maybe to generate some revenue with the sprinkler mandate certification? And then number two, where do you see us going in terms of being able to, corral or get a handle on, people that aren't obeying the law right now?
Well, I appreciate your comments, and they're well stated. The training facet of this, is this thing working? The training part of this, I have sent staff to the training. And in residential training, or residential sprinklers, we are certified and are qualified as the building department to sign those off. It's 13D, which is a different requirement than for residential sprinklers than for commercial sprinklers. So we're covered there. So the ongoing training is what we will continue to do should the sprinkler thing continue to be an overwhelming problem, which it hasn't been, because we haven't been bringing in, I don't believe we've brought in a new residence yet since January 1st, since the sprinkler regulations went into effect. So we're waiting to get a chance to even look at the first sprinkler plan, and we haven't seen one yet. We anticipate one or two, but again, we're our way behind where we usually would be this time of year without the depression in the construction industry. And again, the foreclosure market continues to eke out on a regular basis the competition that we can't compete with in new housing. So there's just there's a lineup of obstacles out there that continue to keep us in the condition that we're in. And another thing that is worth mentioning as we're talking about sprinklers is pending legislation by Berryhill, a Senate bill, that may take sprinklers out of the jurisdictions in rural areas that might choose to opt out of the sprinkler code. So we don't even know if the pending legislation is going to keep the sprinklers in the code if jurisdictions opt out. So we're keeping an eye on that too. So we've looked carefully at all the things that can keep us alive and we're hanging there with, this is our best effort at this point in time.
Other board.
One other question. On page 4 of our briefing here, there's a paragraph that reads, "The other option is to adopt a resolution reducing the above-listed positions to 80% until the end of fiscal year 2010. It goes on to describe this a little bit and says they'll be eligible for the same unemployments as if they were under the work-sharing program, and then says it's the department's recommendation. Is that still your recommendation?
Yes, because the part of this proposal is the layoffs and reducing the remaining staff to 80% time.
Right, but there were several different mechanisms through which to accomplish that, and that's not listed in that portion of where it says recommendation.
On page 3, it discusses the staff recommendations can be achieved in 2 ways, and then
right. Well, I just wanted to make sure that you're still on that because both of them are in here.
Yes, I am.
Go to the resolution in the very back.
Yeah, I've got the 80%, but it doesn't talk about the unemployment aspect of that. I just wanted to make sure that's in it.
Yeah, we're not recommending the work share for the remaining pay periods.
For the board discussion, any public comments? Behind you, Francine.
The City of Angels Camp just approved at their last city council meeting the update in the UBC Unified Building Code and with the sprinklers. And as the chief building inspector said, there are no certifications for existing chief building inspectors for residential sprinklers. And the other thing, I'm in support of what Darren and Steve are talking about, trying to hang on to these employees. And I would just strongly urge that an all-out effort with these 2 employees, or at least with the building inspector, to get out there and really comb the county for violations and see if we can't get the additional income and keep them employed. Thank you.
Jim Turley, SEIU. The 8 employees that you're talking about belong to SEIU, and I find it ironic that do any of you know all of them by name and to see them?
Yes.
You do?
I go over there. If I'm going to make a decision today, Mr. Turley, I'm going to look people in the eye.
Okay, very good. So it becomes a math problem, and you're going to have 8 people out looking for work, 8 people potentially losing their jobs, 8 people potentially not being able to feed their families. Now, if it's a math problem, let's look at it as a math problem. If you take the 2 full-time positions that you want to lay off, plus laying off Mr. White for 50% of the time, between the salary and the benefits for 5 pay periods, you would save $49,000. Plus the $29,000 adds up to $78,000. Plus the $8,000 adds up to $86,000 that you would save. And that's 5 pay periods. If you lay off Mr. White, plus the 2 full-time inspectors, you would save $33,000 in salaries. In benefits, you would save the $29,000 in your overall supplies, and you'd save $8,000 in your recoup of surplus vehicles. If you add in 1 day of pay period instead of 2 days on the other 6 employees, you would save an additional $6,000, and you would be at $87,000, which cover both of those scenarios cover your $85,000. Now it's simple math. You don't have to go to college to figure that out, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. But I do not advocate laying anybody off. This county has the resources between departments to find work for these people. You have to come up with a way. Take a chance, break the rules, bend the rules, combine funds if you have to. You do not need to lay people off. I was told by one employee in the building department that you're going to require and keep the building department head on staff so he can cover Fridays and keep the department open because you don't want to close the department. He makes $39.60 an hour. You have 2 employees. Any 2 of the employees you keep on would make less than he makes in 1 hour. And you're telling me you're going to keep a department head on versus employees. That's wrong. Look at the total picture. Don't just look at the employees. The economy will turn around. It will not be quick, but to unemploy so many people for so long is not justified, is not right, and you will not benefit from it. You can't. I implore you, do not lay these people off. Look at the alternatives. You've got 5 pay periods, 10 weeks to get past this dilemma. And yes, it comes down to dollars and cents, and that's what you deal with. But you're also dealing with the human factor, and how are you going to look at those 10 people or 8 people in the eye and say, we don't need you anymore? Some of them have 20 years with this county and have devoted themselves to doing a good job. And you're going to look at them and say, we don't need you anymore. You're going out with the dishwater. That's wrong. And you know it. I know it. Nobody feels good about it. So don't do it. Find the money someplace else. Your contingency funds are for these times. And if you've overspent them other times, that's on you. Don't punish the people that support you. And you also have to remember, and I've reminded this board before, these are your constituents as well as the people outside in the populace. These people work for you, they vote for you, they dedicate themselves to you, and they deserve your loyalty as much as you want theirs. Thank you.
Please, any other public comments?
Yes, my name is Peter Grace, Valley Spring. It's one of those rarities that I'm going to agree with most of you folks and that gentleman who just spoke here. Okay. What's got us here, in my humble opinion, is some of the values, ideologies, and agendas that force this county into this situation. You better take a good look at it. There is a reason why this county at the bottom of the total poll compared to other counties. As far as keeping those folks in a building department, I noticed there's a number of commercial entities that are not quite up to date on some of their conditions, or if they do have a conditions that they're supposed to be met, or if the conditions been put on them. Maybe it needs to be looked at, and if they don't have the public, the personnel to do it, maybe they need some outside help to bring this to the light. There's a number of businesses in this county, and I know how you folks feel about conditional approval of these commercial entities. They can take a look at it and bring some money. Now, either they're can do it, or maybe some outside help they need to bring it, and that could keep them busy for quite a while. Plus, it could bring some substantial amount of funding to the department. So, As far as this information goes, I just noticed that Sacramento has lost most job in the nation. Sacramento. California has the lowest bond rating in the nation, and second in unemployment. So if the president is just keeping employees for the next couple of weeks, a couple of months, it's going to take more than that. And got to get some kind of incentive to bring more business, more property tax, commercial entities. You got to figure out some way to give people incentive to do it in this county, not just shoot them down. Because, folks, this summer is going to get very nasty. And you guys are on the front line. And those folks from SCIU, they're going to get mad at you. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Then I'm bringing it back to the board. We'll close off public comments. Is there further board discussion? Jeff, you have another comment?
Yes, one more comment. The fact is we have a serious lack of work. It's that simple. When we don't have the work, we don't have the money, we can't pay the people. That's what the bottom line is here. The last thing that any of us want to do in this room is lay people off. I don't even think we need to discuss that any further. That's just the way things are right now. It grieves me to have to do this. But if we don't have the work, I don't know what else to do. And if we are able to save people and we go into next year's budget, we may be doing this again quicker than we're doing it now. So it's just the reality of the way things are.
Thank you. Any other staff comments? Okay, I'll bring it back down to the board. Any additional board comments? Darren?
Go
ahead.
I'd like to thank Mr. Charlie for doing his job, for sticking out for his union people. That's what he's supposed to do, and I like his passion. I also like to thank Mr. Race for being a competent individual and realizing that cuts aren't always the answer. I'd like to thank Mr. White for pointing out on more than one occasion that the root of this problem is that we just don't have the work. Now, what I would submit to you is that the reason we don't is because of various entities within the county that are very adversarial to building taking place. And when we take such a stance as a county, it affects everyone, not just the building department. It affects the planning department. It affects the revenue sources for the schools. It affects everyone across the board, even down to people who are swinging a hammer that are providing the labor to build things. One thing that I want to share with you, in a meeting that Supervisor Toffanelli and I attended last week, we were able to spend some time with one of our colleagues from Amador County, Mr. Supervisor Novelli. Gary reiterated at that meeting when we were talking about budget status. At our mid-year projection, we were $400,000 in the black in Calaveras County. With a projected $1.6 million deficit at the end, but we were at $400,000 in the black as we stand right now. At the mid-year projection for Amador County, they stood at $3.3 million in the red at mid-year. Now, to get full perspective on that, you have to look and see that Amador County has 10,000 less residents than Calaveras County. And they have significantly more revenue source from, commercial entities that we always, say we'd love to have. Things like Lowe's and Safeway and all those wonderful shopping experiences they have over in Martell. So if they have all that commercial revenue generation, 10,000 less residents, and they're $3.3 million in the red, we don't have even a fraction of that commercial revenue that they get from commercial and retail, and yet we are $400,000 in the black. We need to pat ourselves on the back a little bit and say, we haven't been doing too bad in terms of trying to rein in the spending. I don't think spending is the problem. I think that there's been enough jobs cut here, and I think the real focus needs to be on generating revenue. Obviously, Amador has revenue, and they haven't reined in their spending. I think that Calaveras has done a fabulous job, from what I'm aware of, at doing the best to be proactive, to rein in spending, to mitigate these shortfalls. But I think we're at the point where we have to seriously take a look at it and say, look, the reason why we don't have enough work and why we're continuing to cut people is because of a pervasive ideology of non-development. That is what nobody wants to talk about. If people continue to have the ideology that they are absolutely against any kind of development taking place in this county, then they might as well face the fact that we're going to go bankrupt and shut down. Because fiscal responsibility, with the amount of money that we have coming in, I think has been demonstrated, at least in the short run, with this $400,000 in the black at mid-year, if you want to compare that to the $3.3 million hole that Amador's in, with much more revenue and less people to serve. I think the people of this county that work for the county in all the peripheries are doing a fabulous job. And I'd like to see people get real and start talking to people like Mr. Coe, who wants to open various businesses in Paloma, and people in Copperopolis, in Valley Springs, other places that want to open businesses and start residential development again, to be ahead of the curve and come out of this as a leader when the economy turns. It just really makes me sick. We need revenue. There's people that are willing, even in this crappy economy, they're willing to put forward their money of capital to invest in development and businesses in this county. And we continue to turn them away and tell them, don't let the door hit you on the way out. And as long as we continue to do that, we're going to continue to have to cut jobs. So I would say that if there's anybody here today that's really concerned about jobs, then they need to wake up, smell the coffee, and start talking about what we can do to create revenue. And I'm not saying you have to pave over every inch of Calaveras County with blacktop and put in 10 Walmarts. But there needs to be some kind of consistent effort to generate revenue. These people that are kiboshing on development, what's the carbon footprint of a family like mine that has to drive down to Lodi or Stockton to buy a pair of jeans for my kid? What's the wear and tear on the road? What's the carbon that goes in the atmosphere? How many fossil fuels are expended? Okay? There needs to be balance. There is no balance right now, and there hasn't been for some time. That's what I hope to achieve, and I hope that the members of this board and the people that can make a change would seek for balance. There is not the balance that's needed right now, and these people are just 2 people or 8 people or whatever. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There's already been close to 200 people that have been laid off already in the county system, and there will be more if we continue down this road. And if there are contingency funds available, I think, we owe it to the people that are here to give them the time to look to create ways to generate revenue by looking at viable projects that are on the books or people that are applying right now. And then, if we've expended all those contingency funds, then talk about layoffs. If you're going to take something down, you're going to take it all the way to the ground. I mean, if there's funds and there's a way that we can do these, $30,000 worth of red tags out there, we could save 19 if you put those people on it or something. I mean, can't they go and hound those people every single day until they pay their red tags to get that $30,000? Have you put it to them that way? The people that work in that department say, you can get laid off right now, or you can go to this guy's house every single day and knock on the door and tell him you want the money? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know that if I was in that position and somebody gave me that opportunity, you better bet your bippy I'd be there. even if it was off the clock, I'd be going like a collection agent. Those people at 8 o'clock at night when they were done with dinner and ready for bed to ask them for their red tag money, what they were doing. I was unemployed for a year and a half before I was elected, and I know what it feels like.
Any other board comments? Then the chair is open for a motion.
Well, I am going to make a couple of comments.
Okay.
One, Mr. Spellman, you can go to Turner's Wild West and Angels Camp to buy jeans. There are a lot of things that we can buy local here. At the last time we met at the budget review, Mr. White asked for time to do all those things that have been mentioned here. This is as difficult as it is for us. It is even more difficult for Jeff White to do this to people he has been working with for 20 years. Would he be here today if he had other options? Absolutely not. Whether it was the red tags, which he reviewed, which were projects he tried to get people to start up. All the things that we have asked for, Mr. White and his staff have looked at. Also, as you know from prior conversations, and it's going on now, if you have been over there, you would know, and the land use departments have been talking, doing the kinds of things that Steve referred to that the district attorney did. What our administrative office is doing and trying to get like departments, i.e. the financial departments, the public safety departments, to look at sharing resources. I will tell you this is extremely painful for me, as I know it is for all of you. As Jeff said, he's trying to keep something alive that's very difficult to keep alive when there is no work. In terms of finding work with other departments of people who might be laid off, that's a standard procedure that we try and do. You know, Mr. Turley said it too, find work for these people. If we can, we are. This is just the start. I mean, we're going to be facing this issue come budget time if we don't before. We're going to have to make these decisions. Departments are already doing their budget cuts. I mean, it doesn't appear as that the constitutional amendment will be on the ballot, and if that's not out there, then we're going to be talking about draconian cuts throughout just not only this county but all the others in the state of California, in the state, which will of course trickle down to us. The board doesn't want to make any motion on this, but unless the board wants to ante up and say we will give up contingency money, then I want you to know there'll be other departments in here asking for the same thing. It just happens that this happens to be the first, and Mr. White is taking control of it now. So it doesn't become worse. From the time he was in at preliminary budget at 85,000 or 83, and now at 105, what's going to happen by the time we get to June into budget time? And you have to go over and you have to look at employees. You have to be able to talk to them. And we've done this before, and it is painful, and we will be doing more of it before this is over. Jeff, I'm very sorry for what you've had to do. I know you've talked to your staff, and I know you wouldn't do this if you didn't have to. So I will make the motion reluctantly because I'm sure
there's
if Tom,
other comments
I'm
that
sure
follow.
if
Just
Tom
a second.
asked for a motion, none of us
Yes.
would say, and we'd say it died for lack of a motion. And the next is how much of the contingency are we going to give to save this department and the next department and the next department?
Steve, you have additional comment?
Yes, I do. I would echo Marita's comments that nobody up here does anything like this with any joy in our hearts, quite the contrary. I would also say that for me, I don't like to deal anymore with this level of budget on a department-by-department basis. I don't understand how we managed, and I do understand that this is a department entirely dependent upon revenues that are not coming in. All right, that much I do understand. But as we silo the sacrifices, it strikes me that we're missing opportunities to deal with things in a more comprehensive way, and I think that does rest with our board. There are all kinds of, as you've already heard, there are all kinds of theories about our economic circumstances. This county for a long time thought the best way to attract business was to not have fees or have the lowest in the region. Other counties that put a RIM fee in a lot earlier built roads and are using those as vehicles to have development or sewer systems or water systems. We wind up not relating infrastructure to our economic plight, and we don't see the role that government policy plays in setting the table for economic development. So while we have many annoying aspects to getting through our system, one of the fundamental things is even if you get through that, you don't have a set of infrastructure that can serve the very businesses that we seek to attract. Or for that matter, a economic development element to our general plan, which we're working on, but as so far has very little in the way of implementation measures, even in its draft, or identified places that would lead to the kind of business development that people are talking about. It's easy to talk about it, but there's a lot of work to get it done, and you can see that some counties have pursued that with more gusto than we, who achieve high marks in rhetoric but low marks in performance. I think there are 5 things that we need to do in an economic moment like this for this county, and I don't think you can do them one at a time. You can't say, all right, we're going to solve this problem over here in this department, and the rest of them will go on as usual, and then, okay, we'll cut the rest of it to ribbons in another few weeks, without the following things. Number 1 is to achieve in every possible way the kinds of efficiencies that were talked about just only a half hour ago. Consolidations. We have so many different departments. We have so many different pieces of what amounts, what really only provides 5 different areas of service, and it strikes me that that's now overdue. We talk about cuts to employees, but in my view, this is the kind of thing that has to be done with all of us at all levels. If there are going to be elements of that, which I don't see a way to avoid at this point, but think that equitability is a critical aspect, which means that we need to meet and confer on these things. So, for instance, if there was another model here that took 20% across the board, and had the form of unemployment that was in one of the alternatives here, the savings would have been greater, but instead it falls to one portion of the workforce, not the whole. Finally, we are going to have to cut services. Doing it on a strategic and county-wide basis is better than doing it department by department, because some cuts that may benefit one department may cost others a great deal. And finally, at the risk of incurring the wrath of a lot of people, even if we did all of that, we're not going to cut our way out of this situation. The state is trying, or at least some in the state are trying to have a balanced approach. And some element of revenue has to be part of a package, or we're simply going to have not just a smaller government, but one that can't function to the needs of its people, cannot respond to the needs of its people. We're already witnessing some of that stuff when we're faced with emergencies and overtime costs to deal with it. I don't see a way to approach this without the fundamental principle that if we're going to ask some people to sacrifice, that we need to see ourselves not just as a set of departments or a set of classifications within a department or management, mid-management, and then the workers. I think this is a moment for all of us to come up with things equally, fairly, and across the board so as to preserve the best possible services under this god-awful set of circumstances. But the revenue aspect that deals with the fact that we have a very low TOT and we have no economic plan, those are big things that if we don't lead on it, I'm not sure who will, and that we'll always wind up in these heartbreaking moments without much of a solution except, well, we'll do these people and then we'll do these other people, and by the time it's over, we will have piecemealed it to a level of dysfunction that can't meet even the most fundamental public need.
Does that complete your comments?
That does.
Okay, I'll go to the right-hand side of the table. Any additional comments, board members? If not, I'll give my comments. I support staff's recommendation. You know, this has been stated many times, there's not a workload to employ these people. And quite frankly, the county is not in a position where it can just warehouse people waiting for better times. I mean, we are absolutely not able to do that. I strongly disagree with Jim's one comment that we have the resources in the county to avoid layoffs. We don't have the resources in the county to avoid layoffs. Quite frankly, what we're looking at today is the first sort of salvo of the 2011-2012 budget process. In some ways, I agree with Steve's comment that what will happen, which wasn't part of Steve's comment, is we're going to look at each department and ask them to make the cuts that can be reasonably made and still allow them to have a functioning department. If there is a deficit, then the continues after that is basically going to come down to compensation issues, and whether it be paying more for the employee paying more of the PERS contribution, or other types of compensation issues. We can't take departments down to where they're totally dysfunctional. A proposed budget's gone out asking all departments to make a 10% cut. Quite frankly, some departments aren't going to be able to make a 10% cut. Some departments will be able to make a 10% cut. Then the final analysis, that'll be up to the board's discretion to look at that. And then, any remaining deficit, if there is any, which I expect there will be a substantial one, will come out of compensation. And that's just the reality of where we are. I'll give one sort of overview, since there's been lots of talk by Steve and Darren on the sort of the macroeconomic picture of California and the nation. Quite frankly, California, in my opinion, is in sort of a death spiral of regulatory abuse. We aren't going to have a strong rebound, and we're not going to have a strong economy unless we can deal with the two major components of the Democratic Party, and one of them is the environmental community, where we have environmental regulations that are just absolutely killing business. It was on the ballot to suspend AB 32 in the last election in November, and the citizens voted it down. It seems like they want a self-destructive economic environment in California. The other key component of the Democratic Party are the unions, and a major one's the public sector unions. I mean, one of the main reasons we're here in this situation in the public sector is because of the SEIU union, quite frankly, where they put demands and put demands. We had Democratic governors and huge Democrats majorities in the legislature. They collected from the private sector to go to the public sector to pay the public sector, and then they took part of that private sector money in mandatory dues and gave it all to Democrats. And the Democrats gave away the ship in the public sector anyway to the unions, whether it be benefits or whether it be compensation. And not so much in the rural counties, but certainly at the state level. And, you know, we've done this to ourselves, and California will lag in the economic recovery. I mean, California, I don't know if we've ever been in a position where we're the second worst state in unemployment in the nation. That should ring some bells somewhere. And yet, in the budget solution, it's cuts at the government level, and it's increased taxes. There's no economic growth element to that at all. There's a little maybe economic growth to cutting the private sector if you're not going to put a greater burden on the public sector if you're not putting a greater burden on the private sector. But the tax increases are putting a greater burden on the private sector. And, you know, it's like Milton Friedman said, a regulation is just a tax. That's all it is. If it raises the cost of being in business, doesn't matter if you're paying it for a regulatory requirement or you pay it to the government in taxes. It's a tax. And our tax structure, particularly if you include the regulatory burdens, is just, it's absolutely killing the private sector. And quite frankly, you look at a lot of the growth. I mean, Darren points out and puts a lot of the blame on county government. I don't think the blame particularly belongs on county government. I believe it belongs at the state government, because we're required to do EIRs. We're required to do all this stuff. Anybody can sue on the EIRs. I mean, you can tie up county development endlessly because of state rules and state regulations. The county has no basic control over that. You know, we have some control over zoning, but if whatever the project is requires an environmental review, then it's going to be the environmentalists that are going to determine the outcome of that project. So those are my comments. I will support a motion as recommended by staff. Thank you. Is there a motion?
I make the motion.
Is there a second?
At some point, I'd like to make a comment before I make any vote.
Well, we need a second, and then we'll open it up for additional comments.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion by Supervisor Callaway, a second by Supervisor Tofinelli. Are there additional board comments? Go ahead, Darren.
You know, I don't want to pick on Chair Tryon, but, you know, I'm really tired of hearing about, you know, the Democrats or Republicans and pointing fingers and who's responsible. You know, the Bush administration as well as the Obama administration both passed several hundreds of billions of dollars of bailouts for banks who are experiencing a bumper crop of profits in these hard economic times. You know, HSBC Bank, Chase, Morgan Stanley, a number of people. And, you know, it was a Republican governor of this state that took money illegally, in my opinion, from taxes that were collected for gasoline purchases that were supposed to go to road repair and maintenance and construction, and gave them to the California Air Resource Board to allow them to not have to lay off people who work for the CARB for the state. And that ties into your AB 32 complaint. The CARB board is a big part of that AB 32 legislation and the ongoing efforts in that matter. And the Republican governor, Schwarzenegger, was the one who took the money away from road paving and construction to give to keep those employees of the California Air Resource Board, keep them in their jobs instead of being laid off. So one other thing I would add, and I've said it many times and I'm going to continue to beat the drum on this one, Napa County, which is, you know, whatever way you want to call it, they're more heavily Democratic in their voter registration. You know, yes, to some extent we are we are held, in the chains of federal and state legislation. But the county does have an ability to work their way out of these things. We can't just, throw our hands up in the air and say we're at the mercy of these people. No, Napa County has a $50 million reserve. They haven't laid off one county employee. And you may say, well, Napa County has lots of wineries and they've got all kinds of things like that attract businesses, and they have, yeah, well, you know what? So do we. We've got a lot of wineries, and we've got golf courses, and we've got, caverns and, a state park right up the road on Highway 4. We've got plenty of things. We could compete with Napa County. What, Napa County is just destined by God to be the best county in California, and they deserve to have a $50 million reserve, and we don't? We're not deserving of that? It's not a matter of deserving, and obviously it's not a matter of the economy. Obviously the economy bears on Napa County as well as it does Calaveras. They're a county within the same state, which have the same environmental regulations, the same union employees regulations that we do, but yet they have a $50 million reserve and they haven't laid off one employee. So again, I'm going to state again, it comes back to people who are willing to seek balance and to seek revenue. I don't think that mismanagement is our problem as much as it is a generation of revenue. And I would plead with the people that are able to make changes, that they would find it in their hearts to put some effort into focusing on revenue generation rather than just cutting. And if there's contingencies, these people that are going to be cut, these two people, and there's going to be more, I know, that'll come up as we've discussed. These people are the people that show up for work day after day after day that are not at the top of the pay scale. They don't have any ability within themselves to generate a change. It's the executive and administrative branches of government, which include the members of this board and other various leaders within the county, that are in the position to make the changes to keep these people from losing their jobs. And they haven't done it. In the economic hard times, yes, we understand that. But using Napa as an example, there are ways to make a change. So let's not talk about why we're not in the position we want to be in. Let's talk about finding balance and making a commitment to make a change so that we don't find ourselves in this position in the future. Please.
Any other board comments? I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor so indicate by stating aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Nay. Passes on a 3-2 vote with Supervisor Walensky and Supervisor Spellman voting in the negative. Move forward then to item 7, discussion and possible board action, appointment of applicants to serve various committees, commissions, and advisory boards. Madeline, will you lead us through this?
Okay. Madeline Kurska, County Clerk. We have some cleanup from the January 18th appointments. And one correction I'd like to make is under the Agricultural Dispute Resolution Committee, it should be for a cattleman's representative, not an alternate. Currently, we are carrying nobody for that position. The gentleman, Nicholas Valenti, had been the alternate before and can serve as the appointed representative.
Okay.
So if you have any questions about any of the other ones, let me know.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
So I turn the page here. You have the PEG Commission, Television Commission, one opening for Representative District 4.
Yes.
On an unexpired term. I received a copy of an application from Sarah Lunsford, but I don't see her name.
I did not get that.
You didn't get it?
No, I did not.
Okay, then I'm going to ask that be continued
Okay.
for 2 or 3 weeks. And somebody needs to contact Sarah, because she sent me a copy of it.
Tom,
And,
which appointment was that?
it's on the second page under the
Tom
PEG
Pratt.
for District 4.
I see, yes.
So we have one applicant, but she sent this to me, I don't know, a month ago or something.
Okay,
So I
I'll
was
check with her
assuming
then.
she would be on the list, but I do not see her on the list.
No.
So,
have that.
so I would like to have that continued
Okay.
for 2 or 3 weeks and allow her to, I don't know what happened with getting the application in, but I received a copy of it. She sent it to me. So
I'll contact her.
I assumed it was here, but it's not. Okay, so that's my only comment. I would ask the board to when we get to making a motion, to continue that for a couple of weeks or whatever.
And, Mr.
You
Chair,
have a comment, Steve?
I also do, I'd like to, we have one applicant for the Fish and Game Commission as an alternate for District 2.
Okay.
I would like to hold that
Also.
for the same time period.
Okay,
as
that's
yours.
fine. We'll pull the,
Okay.
let's do everything else. Well, okay, does anybody else have anything they wish to have continued? Then why don't I entertain, Steve? Why don't I entertain a motion to continue those two? What do you like, 2-3 weeks?
Yes, 3 weeks.
3
would be
weeks.
good.
I'll move to continue both the District 4
PEG
applicant and the Fish and Game District 2 alternate for 3 weeks.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
On which one?
On the motion.
The whole,
Holding the two for 3 weeks, that would be Fish and Game Commission District
Okay.
2 and PEG District 4.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Is there further board discussion? What was the issue you
No,
had?
I want to discuss that before we take a vote.
On the remainder.
On the remainder.
On the
when
remainder.
we go,
Okay.
when we
Okay.
go.
So I have a motion, I have a second. Do I have further board discussion? All in favor, so indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Okay, then we go to the remainder. Now, do we have anything where we have more than one application for something? Okay, so let me just ask the board, does any board member wish to oppose any of the applicants that are before us?
I have a
Or comment?
comment on the Ag Dispute Resolution Committee. We have discussed, and if I remember correctly, Council might have discussed that we would want to reformat how the Ag Dispute Resolution Committee works, that it not be appointed by the board. Jim, do you remember or was it a conversation we had? So it isn't...
I don't recall where the discussion was, but I think it was in here. I think that we need to revisit the function of the Dispute Resolution Committee, but as of right now, it's part of the county code, and we have to fill these positions and
But
follow the code.
could we hold off on doing that? I mean, is there anything pressing that's going before it that they don't have members?
I couldn't tell you that.
So that we look at it?
Larry, why don't you come forward?
Actually, they didn't have a quorum the last time we met.
Good morning, Mary Mutte. Commissioner, you asked a question if there was anything pressing before the Ag Dispute Resolution Committee. There happens to be one dispute before the committee. We cannot work on it because there has not been enough members that have been appointed to even make a quorum. That's the only issue before the committee.
Well, considering the Ag Dispute Resolution is voluntary on part of people who go there, I mean, because the question keeps coming up, should it be a Brown Act committee or shouldn't it be? Or, these are private issues between people who go before it. Should it be something that's open to the public? Should it be just something between a member of the committee, like that paragraph 5 that, we
Correct.
talked about, that it's just a written agreement between the person who comes and members of the committee? What would it take, or should we take it and look at it separately? Is this a pressing matter? Of course, everything's
Maybe
pressing.
I might add on to that. Should we keep it? Should we abolish we have no other committee that does disputes. We have code of compliance. There are disputes over there all the time. We don't have a private citizens committee to come in and solve disputes. And quite frankly, I don't know that this group has ever really resolved any, because they're in dispute. Nobody has any obligation to follow their recommendations. Sometimes it seems like it just makes people madder when you get they feel like, well, now you're just picking on me more. So I guess the question is, and maybe you can answer, should we continue with this committee?
I've not discussed this with any committee members, as a whole, but my recommendation would be to consider abolishing the committee. It is difficult to talk about privacy issues among the individuals that submit complaints when it is open to the public. There could be another format for such a committee. Perhaps the Ag Coalition could undertake handling disputes as a service to those that would like to give it a try.
Could I just add that this goes to the heart of the problem? As long as the board's making these appointments, this is a Brown Act group. It has to follow the requirements of the Brown Act, so we can't avoid that.
Well, has this ever really worked in resolving any disputes, particularly? I mean, we had the one with the roosters, and it seems like a bunch of people on the Ag Dispute Resolution Committee left and, resigned and sort of discussed. And I just don't see I don't see how it resolves anything, quite frankly. I think some maybe political pressure off the board or something, but I don't see it resolving anything.
We did have resolution with an incident out on Arola Road and a winery wanting to expand. It's either the size of its facility or parking lot, something very minor like that, and there was a resolution to that. Other than that, we have tried, and as we know, with the railroad flat rooster incident, what was trying to be something helpful did turn into a nightmare. Perhaps I can come back with, the board agenda item to abolish the committee, to repeal the ordinance. And
I guess I like the concept of it. I'm just not sure it does, and it probably, it serves a purpose, but these are private matters for individuals, and to have it be maybe open to the public might find another venue to do that. If it goes to the Ag Coalition, sort of a motley group of different entities, motley group. I knew before I said that I shouldn't have said it, but it's the Farm Bureau and the cattle, and it's
the Wine Alliance,
and the Wine Alliance.
Perhaps one of those groups could be the
organizer. I just think there's other ways to do it. I really like the concept. I'm just not sure that it needs to be appointed and be a Brown Act committee.
Oh, there you are. Excuse me, Steve. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. It does strike me that one of the reasons, and by the way, in the original ordinance, we were to revisit this anyway. There was a time trigger, which was, I believe, has come and gone, but we were to review it. The original goals were to try to take an inordinate number of cases that were coming before code compliance, 4 or 5 other county departments, mostly in law enforcement, that were bogging down over really what amounts to neighbor disputes. And of course, we can always say, well, neighbors, you've always got the courts. But we have seen that a number of people have taken that advice, and that has not made better neighborhoods and has bogged down our legal system. So the goal here was to have a county-sponsored group of people trained in mediation techniques that could try to resolve disputes before they began bogging down our staff and costing a great deal of money. In truth, there have been a number of cases where people's practices did change. There was one on Michael Road that had some impact, although not as complete as people hoped. There were a number of different disputes that came and were discussed, and people backed off those kinds of disputes. We also had a neighbor dispute on tree trimming that turned, after taking a great deal of county time in 6 departments, wound up in 2 deaths. So the idea was to try to de-escalate on an early basis with people who had some training and skill that were not employed by county, we're not spending county money as people shopped at different departments. Now getting to the issue before us, this group, as all of us have, who tried to touch the rooster issue in Railroad Flat, not one single person or department that has approached this, including 2 judges, the Ag Department, the the two district attorneys, the county council, the CAO, the building department, the planning department, and at least one or two supervisors who have made an attempt to resolve between parties that appear to have many challenges to get their stuff resolved. I would not throw out the dispute resolution process with the bathwater on that particularly messy case. I would also say that the people who got defamed here, including one person who's with us today, in that process were fairly described in terms of their good faith efforts to resolve it. And the fact that people were so discouraged by their experience with that and resigned does not indict either the Ag Dispute Resolution Committee or, for that matter, the process of mediation. It's simply that there are some circumstances that defy resolution despite good faith efforts of legions of people, and in this county now hundreds of hours and thousands of pages of public disclosure, and yet it eludes resolution, eludes the two neighbors in dispute. But I do want to, at this point, suggest that we do what's in front of us, which is to, as long as we have the ordinance, fill the positions, and at the same time do what the ordinance called for, which is a timely review, so that we can make the adjustments necessary for them to be able to facilitate resolution rather than bog down in process.
With all due respect, I knew there was a sunset on that ordinance of 2008, and we did bring it forward, and yes. There is now another sunset on the ordinance, which I believe is December 2013.
Right. I understand we renewed, but we did not do as thorough a review as we might have under the current circumstances, having learned some things in the past year or so in process.
I guess I understand where Steve's coming from. It's sort of his baby, but I'd rather we change it now while we have the opportunity, because to appoint people and say, well, you're going to be hanging out there, and it could be 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever. I don't think that's fair. I think we should, if we're going to do it, let's do it, or at least let's review doing it. And maybe instead of calling it Ag Dispute Resolution, it's just a dispute. It takes another iteration.
Yeah, I understand.
So even though I agree, I like the concept, I just don't like the concept the way it's formatted now.
How could we, I'm not sure that we ourselves should be the sole people who are talking about what changes, and the very people that we would have on this committee should be.
I think it's very difficult to do any mediation in an open forum where it's a Brown Act committee.
Right. I completely
it's
agree.
virtually impossible to do.
Right. Confidentiality in mediation is one of the critical pieces of it, and so we haven't framed this properly and need to revise it, certainly.
So Mary suggested that she put some format or something together and bring it back.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we pull it off today's agenda like we did the other two?
Move it to the 3.
Move it to 3 weeks. Give Mary some time to look at some other way or another avenue to present to us, and then we can go from there.
Well, I would ask the one thing, since you have a case pending and that you're working on it and you're unable to take action on it because you don't have a quorum, is that case going to be jeopardized, or is there a timely issue in relation to that would warrant any other?
What case is that we're talking about?
I received a dispute form from Michelle Knipple up in Glencoe, and it's the neighbors are complaining about her few head of cattle, or maybe she has a couple cows. It just seems to be a neighbor 5-acre dispute.
What dispute?
It's a 5-acre dispute over cows. Apparently,
yeah, she has
cows are breaking the fence down and roaming neighbors' property or something. Is that what it is?
Something like that. I haven't gotten into detail with her.
Okay.
Welcome to 5 acres.
Yeah.
Is that something that's in jeopardy if we delay this for 2 or 3 weeks?
Well, it has been on delay for a couple of months already. So I don't think it will
Maybe
cause
you
any
can
additional
resolve
harm.
it. Can you resolve it, bringing some partners together?
Can we resolve it? I don't know anymore.
Well, one of the things, Mary, it seems to me is how much time does this take of your staff, you and your staff?
It doesn't take much time of my staff. I have a staff member that does take minutes or notes at our meetings. But with regards to me, I am very bogged down in it right now, just like the rest of you are, because of all the letters that are coming in regarding the committee. But it takes, a matter of hours to coordinate everything and get the parties together and make the phone calls, pull the committee together, get agenda packets together. So it takes a bit of time. I can't say offhand, I don't want to give incorrect information. I can't say if it takes 8 hours per dispute or 16 hours per dispute. I just can't say that off the top of my head. But it kind of seems to me a route for this committee to go would be to maintain its structure, but just be housed under another private ag organization. The structure is in place, the function is there.
Okay, but then we would abolish this, so it's not board directed, because if it's board directed, you have the Brown Act.
Exactly.
So what you would have to do is maybe get some ag people together saying, would you just be a voluntary group I can refer to?
Exactly. If someone calls, I can say there, or you can contact the Ag Dispute Committee that is under the Farm Bureau, or the Cattlemen's, or Calaveras Grown, or whoever would offer to be the mother of the committee.
Okay.
Well, I would make a motion to remove this item.
For 3 weeks.
For 3 weeks, continue it for 3 weeks.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by
Tofinelli.
Supervisor Tofinelli and a second by Supervisor Walensky for a 3-week continuance of the Ag Dispute Resolution Committee appointments. Do I have further discussion?
I have a question, because I suspect Mary's going to be calling me after this meeting to talk about where we're going. So would the board like us to bring back a revised ordinance?
No.
Would it be a form of a study session to sort of a general discussion about what we are going to do on this? Or so some guidance would be helpful on that.
I think a study session, and it could be that we do away with the ordinance, or I don't know if it'll
Or
be a
reconstruct it, or abolish this particular one, and
so a study session.
But do you really want a study session? I mean,
yes.
I think we just need to abolish it and let Mary work out an alternative form so there's no board direction and there's no Brown Act.
Well, how we agendize it?
Otherwise, you're going to keep it under the Brown Act. If we have an ordinance, it's under the Brown Act.
Well, we could, in the study session, say that we want to get rid of the Brown Act. We like the concept, and give Mary some
should we
direction.
Should we abolish the Brown Act countywide?
we wouldn't be able to take an action. We'd just be able to give direction to her, and if we want to dissolve this, I think it's got to come back to the board as an action item.
Right.
Yeah, we would do away with the ordinance.
Yeah.
But we're talking about a further delay after 3 weeks, which is fine with me. I just want to make sure we meet the board's expectations.
Well, let me add one part of the thinking about this as you consider your options, which is that the reason it was not placed under ag organization in the first place was the thought that we had people who were in ag and people who were definitely not in it in dispute, and that the perception for mediation of having some neutral party and neutral composition. So there were people from suburban interface areas as well as people from ag that were on the committee was one of the aspects of that. If this were put under the auspices of one of the ag things, I'm pretty sure that non-ag people would not go there for dispute resolution. So it's just one of the considerations as we think about it is if you're looking for mediation, you have to have some neutral setting for it. And if you're trying to take burden off of county departments, having some county relation to it is one mechanism, although not entirely practiced yet here. So just a couple observations. I would move the...
Well, we have a motion and
Call
a
the
second, I
question.
think, before us. The question is it going to come back with a recommendation from Mary and the board as an action item, or do you want to have a study session on it?
I would like to see it come back as an action item.
That's where I am.
If you're polling the board. So
Yes, I'm polling the board. Darren?
Sure.
Action item or study session?
I think it almost needs to be like a study session because
Okay.
I don't see, if it's supposed to be a situation where this organization is going to have any bite to it,
Well, it
if
doesn't
they're
have any
really going to make, if they're really going to sit down in council and try to resolve issues and to give any kind of real direction that has some kind of merit in terms of consequences for not following it. I mean, I think that it would probably have to be a board resolution committee with the Brown Act and all that kind of stuff. Perhaps it just needs to be restructured on the way that it's dealt with. I don't know. So I'd like to see a study session.
Study session. Steve?
Study session.
Talk
Rita?
about it.
Study session.
I just would point out that our current ordinance is entirely voluntary. And there's no way, it doesn't have sanctions. There's really no way we can impose sanctions. Only the court can do that. So it's entirely a voluntary process.
We're just waving in the wind on these. Okay,
Bye, Tom.
it's coming back
Call
as
the
a
board.
study session.
Okay. Thank you, 3 weeks.
Very good. 3 weeks
Okay.
or thereabouts. Okay, we'll move forward then to item 8.
No,
We have to
we got
finish
the
voting on
balance.
the rest.
You're looking
Oh,
for a
excuse
motion
me.
for the balance.
I move the balance.
I'll second the balance.
I think we should have the dispute resolution committee meet with the board and see if we can resolve the differences on the balance. I have a motion by whom? By Gary?
No, by Mr. Walensky.
Oh, Steve made the motion, Gary made the second. Okay. Walensky and Tofinelli. Further board discussion? All in favor indicate by stating aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Well, that's, huh?
You had a motion and a second
Yeah.
to table it. Did you not need to vote on that?
We didn't vote on
Nah,
that?
We just agreed to.
We moved.
We just moved it out 3
that
weeks.
by
For
vote out of the
studies,
thing.
I'll entertain, I think there was a motion on
There was
that.
a motion.
There was a motion
You-
and second before the board.
You're
Who
right.
was the motion and the second?
Supervisor Toffenelli and then Supervisor Lynch. Second.
Okay, that motion and second still stand.
Yes.
So further board discussion, all in favor so indicate by stating aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote, and the direction was to bring it back as a study session. Resolution approved, they're supposed to come forward if there's public comment anyway. Resolution approving the professional services agreement between Calaveras County and Stantec Consulting Services Incorporated for bridge design services for amount not to exceed $359,108.15. This is a Public Works item, and is there anybody?
Nobody from Public Works. Tom Garcia, where are you? Jonathan Mitchell was in here as well.
I can describe the situation.
Well, this is for the $40 million in bridge
Correct.
money
This is
that
for
we...
bridge design.
Yeah, so I think it's,
No.
is this...
This is the culvert, the county-maintained culvert that has flooded this road on virtually every year, meaning that emergency vehicles have to take over an hour trip around to get to
Which
a
road
group
is
of
it?
residences. This is Hover near
That's
Sault
Hover,
Marie.
okay.
So
Okay, well, you'd like to make the motion?
it's a poor design that needs, and it's the least expensive option. They went through all kinds of design issues. Its first one was to build a whole new bridge. They've got a much cheaper way to go, and it will allow people year-round access, including emergency vehicles.
Okay, so you favor this, is that
It
correct?
also saves maintenance costs because they keep having to unclog.
Come on up, Peter, this was yours,
Mr.
right?
Mitchell is hastily coming in.
Okay, what are your comments?
Here comes Jonathan.
Peter Race, Valley Spring. I do have a couple of problems with this. First of all, there's a number of issues beside the money. County matching funds, $102,432.15. It's wonderful. You laying people off, and you borrowing money, and I don't care if it's my left pocket, right, or rear pocket. You guys are borrowing money from the federal government. A couple of minutes ago, you guys were complaining about what the Fed's doing. Folks, some of you are addicted. This is not the money that the present taxpayer is going to be paying. That's future. The Feds don't have the money. The state don't have the money. You don't have the money. Now, you want to have a consultant. Nobody even did a study of traffic pattern over there. How many people is going to impact? I mean, I realize there's a danger of people have to take a long run around an emergency vehicle. I appreciate that. But take a look at it. You're looking at almost, well, it's $360,000 we're talking about. You laying people off and you hiring an outside firm plus money from the county. How many people use this bridge? I mean, I'm sure they appreciate it. But give me the numbers. How many households is it affecting? I know it's in your district. That's what I'm looking at.
I'm
Okay, does that
familiar
complete
with
your
this,
comments,
but
Peter?
Pardon?
Does that complete your comments?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Well, let's move forward.
In here, you have jobs for public works. They have to do a traffic study. Why don't you hire some of those folks to do the traffic study for you? In a contract, you're calling for a traffic study. Traffic pattern. Has anybody done that? You have to hire an outside people, lay people off locally to do a traffic study on it? Folks, get a reality check. You guys are not the solution. You've been a problem. You've been addicted to this stuff. Oh, it's federal money. It's not federal money. It's taxpayers' money that somebody's going to pay for. Is that debt of emergency? It could be a problem, but it's not an emergency. Quit borrowing money. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan, would you like to come forward and present the item for the board?
Jonathan Mitchell, Public Works. This item is for a contract to proceed with the engineering design services for the eventual construction of a structure crossing the Harbor, this is the Calaveras River Fork at Harbor, the current Harbor crossing, which is a set of corrugated metal cross pipes. And the idea is to replace that with a structure that's able to have the sufficient capacity in flood events to allow continued crossing at that location.
Okay. Okay, any board questions?
Well, I'd like to at least respond to some of the things that came up. The first is, and maybe I should do this in the form of questions, if we were to not expend this money, would we be able to use any portion of it to mitigate layoffs in your department or any other department, for instance, building?
The funds are specifically, they're federal funds identified specifically for this bridge structure. If we were to forego the use of these funds at this time, they would return back to the Highway Bridge Program funding budget, which would ultimately revert to another agency or a program within the state.
All right. Secondly, in relation to the costs that occur virtually annually to our Public Works Department, do you have the amount of money that has been spent to try to ream this thing out every year when it fills? The design went down into the river, and the problem is that there's an area of rock that comes in and fills up the culvert every year. The culvert then floods the road, so we've had to fix the road. We've had to have the enormous inconvenience to about 30 homes, actually, is what we're talking about here, but there are many others that are affected on the other side that use this back and forth. So we've incurred an enormous amount of cost. Do you have that figure by any chance?
I don't have that figure presently, but I could prepare that figure for you. It is, as you said, there is significant maintenance expense with the road crews going to clear the existing corrugated metal piping to allow for the flows during flood events.
Is that more than the county match, ultimately, as we've gone through the years?
The county match requirement for the total construction will probably come to approximately $150,000. So I would have to return with the figure annually. approximate maintenance costs associated with the structure and determine at what point that would become an equal match.
This has been before us for
Yes,
years.
yes, we finally approved this after, 8-9 years of problems, including repeated flooding and hazard.
Okay, I think it's been a priority. Other board comments, and then I'll open it to the public.
Jonathan, I got a couple questions. The contract, this contract that you're asking us to approve is through December 2012, which is a period of about, 18 months, about more than 18 months. Does this contract include after the design phase through construction?
It doesn't. What we typically do is request at the time of proposal that the consultant submit an estimate for what construction management services would be and construction engineering services would be. And upon completion of the design and environmental contract, we evaluate at that time whether we'd like to continue with that given consultant into the construction management phase. In other words, it gives us an option if the performance hasn't been up to the standards that we would like in the design and environmental phase. It gives us an option not to continue on into construction management. That can be
okay.
Other board comments? Any other public comments? Tanya, you have a comment?
Thank you. Good morning. Stantec consultants claim to be a leading sustainable design firm, and they boast of being a global design firm. A couple of weeks ago, Michael Shaw of Freedom Advocates spoke on the global agenda behind sustainable development. The lecture can be seen on the Motherlode Tea Party website. The Sustainable Development Agenda, its expansion of government and control and expense, goes against the American principles and cultures of freedom. American taxpayer money should not go to companies that support anti-American policies like sustainable development. So that's
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'm bringing the discussion back to the board. Are there additional board comments? Okay. Darren?
Yeah. I want to thank Ms. Dawson for bringing that information forward during public comments. I would like to see, if possible, that we use somebody who doesn't purport or, ascribe to anti-American, means of doing business. I don't like that in the least. In the terms of the viability of the project, Supervisor Walensky brought up the point that, in the event that this thing becomes flooded frequently on a yearly basis, there's substantial time for emergency services to respond to someone in the event that there was an emergency of health, heart attack, stroke, something like that, and they had to send somebody out or fire. I would submit that this is one of the main functions that government actually should be involved in, which is infrastructure, to make sure that commerce can take place and that people have a safe environment in their community. So I support the idea of having a bridge that's well maintained for that reason, for commerce and for public safety. But I also would like to say that I appreciate Ms. Dawson's comments about the particular firm that appears to be chosen to do work on this. I would hope that we would seek out firms that don't have political agendas, but people that are able to get the work done without pushing agendas that are against our Constitution.
I got a comment.
Okay.
I think that saying that this is an anti-American firm, I don't know where you're getting that it's anti-American. There's probably not a business in the United States that doesn't have some kind of political agenda, that they don't lobby for something of their interest. If we're going to start selecting companies based on how they do things and we put tags on them, the American way is for people to be able to bid on projects. And if we don't like the bidding system that we have, and we start setting up criteria that they have to vote this way or they have to vote that way, to say that I just find that whole conversation offensive. We go out to bid, any company, if they meet the criteria, can bid on the project. And then we say, well, we don't like them because they're from Southern California, or because they voted this way or they voted that way. I mean, that's not the American way. We have a process for people to bid. It's an open process. And if these other companies that you deem to be pro-American want to bid, they can bid. But that is not a criteria for this county to be picking people for projects. I just find that whole conversation very offensive, and to say this company or any company that we bid on is un-American, that's not where we should be going. And as Mr. Spellman earlier said, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. I mean, this is the way we should be doing business. He is correct on that, but I hate the fact if we go down that path, and I don't even think we should be discussing it as supervisors.
I'd like to comment on that.
Well, let's not have I don't think that's really what's relevant to what's before us at this point. So I think that's our own personal opinions. I mean, I, for one, would certainly hope they're not from Southern California.
Well, I own a business
Next thing
in
you know,
California.
they'll have an engineer that went to USC and not Cal.
I own a business in California and in the United States, and I have absolutely no money for lobbying. So.
Well, let's give it to you.
Okay. Do we have anything that's to point on the agenda?
I just have one, which is that for people who have an interest in this is one of the best combinations of information that I've seen on a project. It's thick, it's full of information. I hope people will access that so they can understand the need. It's got some interesting pictures that show this, but it also has a number of assessments and talks about the selection process in great detail, and I think that would be helpful for people who wanted to know more. I would certainly be happy to share my copy with anybody in the room.
Okay, it's back before us. Is there a motion? Steve?
Yes.
District.
I would move to adopt the resolution approving professional services agreement between Calaveras County and Stantec Consulting Services for bridge design services as proposed in this document.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Supervisor Walensky, a second by Supervisor Callaway. Do I have further board discussion?
Yes.
Discussion. Go ahead.
I'm going to vote for this so that we can move ahead with the needed repairs and with the project. But you know what? Actually, I would like to bring it back to the board at some time to discuss this because, there should be some kind of litmus test for the type of organizations that we give our tax dollars to and approvals to. If they do things that are subversive to what makes us America, then we need to take a second look at that and see if we can't find somebody that's not involved with people that take money from Soros and the likes of his gang. And so that's my 2 cents on that. So.
My suggestion would be is why don't you check with the County Counsel, Jim Jones, and go over what legally we're required to do when we do a bidding process, because we can't get beyond, we can't go beyond what we're legally required to do.
I think there may be some citizen groups
what the legal
that are...
requirements are for eligibility to submit bids. So you should probably start with Jim and see where that takes you. So I have a motion. I have a second. Do I have further board discussion? All in favor, so indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the Board of Supervisors. We'll now move forward to the review of correspondence reports and various matters of concern. Item 10 on the agenda. Marita, why don't I start with you, and then I'll go to Gary, and then Steve, and then Darren.
From March 24 to 27, the Chapter 391 of the Vietnam Veterans of America are bringing in the traveling wall for the Vietnam Memorial. It'll be at the Mother Lode Fairground. It'll also be honoring World War II, Korea, Iraq, Afghanistan, 9/11. I highly encourage all of you, if you get a chance, it will be on view for 24 hours. They set it up. It will be guarded the whole time. That's part of the process. The Vietnam Veterans Group, Chapter 391, raised $10,000 to bring the exhibit here. We're trying to encourage the schools, all of you. I wore an MIA bracelet up to 12 years ago when I found the man's name on the wall. So, I mean, I will be there, and I really hope all of you can make the time. I think it's important to attend at the Motherlode Fairgrounds from the 24th to the 27th. Opening ceremonies are on Friday. And Sonora, yes, thank you.
Okay.
So you're going to be there all 4 days?
No, I've been asked to speak.
Oh.
And I tried to get my sister, because she's a Vietnam veteran, and she would not, which I found was really typical of many women, or men too, in the military. Anyway, and maybe because of my background, and I don't want to talk about it, because
You're saying
I don't want to talk
it's
about
typical of most women not to speak?
No, veterans that were in the war.
Don't go there, that's anti-American.
Anyway, I have Fish and Game Commission this week, California State Association of Counties Board meeting. I'll be at the opening ceremonies for the Vietnam Memorial. And that's it. Oh, wait, one more thing, because RCRC meets, also they'll be asking, Tom's going to RCRC Wednesday. I'll be at CSAC on Thursday. They will be asking us, as a county, where are we on the constitutional amendment to go before the voters in June. Of course, by the time Tom gets to RCRC and I get to CSAC, the decision might have already been made, but that is the extension of the 5-year extension of the taxes. And if it goes before the voters, there's still no guarantee that it'll pass. If it doesn't pass or doesn't go, we talked about what happened to the building department today. It's going to be draconian on what will occur. So I don't know if the board wants to give us some direction. As Jeannie said, the gas tax swap was already approved by the legislature, and there's been an approval of quite a few bills. Everything but the big ticket items have been approved by the legislature. So
I think we should receive some direction, but I think we should open it up for discussion.
Yeah.
Marita's represents the board on CSAC. I represent the board on RCRC, and one of the things I'll just say, maybe I'll give my report right now. I will be attending the RCRC meeting tomorrow in Sacramento, and I'll be attending the chamber mixer at Frogtown Thursday evening. But going back to that issue, my recommendation to the board would be to take no definitive position on it. And the reason for that is that there are ongoing negotiations between the Republicans and the Democrats as to, particularly on the Republican side, as to what the Republicans would like for supporting such a resolution out of the state legislature. I think the Republican caucus is fully aware of the significance and consequences of the state budget crisis, but I don't think we should do something that would help take away the Republican caucus's negotiating position with the Democrats by basically just saying we're for the tax increases without any negotiations for some quid pro quo from the Republican side of the agenda. So I would hope that we would just basically say we're not endorsing or necessarily opposing at this point, and let the negotiations take place between the two parties' caucuses. So but I'll open it up for further board comment.
I'd be interested in where the CAO, I mean, both our CRC and CSAC are supporting that it be allowed to go before the voters. They've already passed the bills to make the cuts in first five, IHSS, and Bonnie alluded to that this morning, CalWorks. There is also the shift, the huge shift that will occur in public safety without this one. Part of it has already started. So, I mean, I think we should just support letting it go to the voters. I don't disagree with the thought that Tom's talking about, but if this doesn't go forward, there will be significant impacts to the counties, including the shifting of state responsibility to the counties. I've been involved in the public safety end of it. I think Colleen has been involved in the human services end of it. It's just an option that's out there, and I think we need to allow that option to go forward. Doesn't mean it'll happen. It doesn't mean negotiations would stop.
Steve.
One of the big issues that government is often called to task on is whether citizens have a chance to make a decision about the level of services that they wish and what, if anything, they're willing to pay for it. And it strikes me that there's no better issue to put before the people of California so that we can gauge instead of having politicians make the decision, although I'm sure they will continue to bargain over it. The state legislature and governors in the recent times have failed to come and engage that. Actually, sometimes they do, and they do get an answer. This is a good moment to touch bases with the electorate and let them make the call. I am not optimistic about necessarily the outcomes of this, and I would much prefer having a legislature and governor that took care of this business over the last 8 years as we slid into this. But in fact, we're now in a situation where we will either do this all by cuts, or we will do this by some balanced approach across the board, and people get a chance to decide which they prefer. I support the vote.
Okay, I think there's two for supporting the tax extensions. Where are the other two?
Well, no.
It's not the tax extension.
That's a bad mischaracterization of my position.
That's not what I got out of it, Tom.
That's what they're putting it on the ballot.
That, and so...
It's so people
like
can
Tom
make a
said,
choice between
You
two
wouldn't
different
be putting it on the
approaches.
ballot, would you?
What?
You
I
let
actually,
the public decide.
Tom, if you're asking that question, the answer would be yes. I actually believe the people of California get a choice, should be making fundamental choices, and that the political parties have essentially failed us in allowing us to make that as a people. And I'm hoping that there'll be less demagoguery, a better and clearer set of choices, and this one certainly appears to be set up with two completely different ideas of how to proceed. And I would rather trust the people of California than this legislature or executive branch to make that
But
decision.
then why wouldn't you let the negotiations between the two parties
Because time's
proceed?
running out.
And as a consequence of that, I suspect the Republicans would like a few things placed on the ballot also. And if you put this on first, they're never going to get the Republican alternatives on the ballot. I mean, the Democrats aren't going to vote for that once they get their option on.
Well,
So I think we need to allow the negotiations to proceed and see what comes out of that negotiating process.
It would appear that the default is a Republican position, and ultimately the state would have no alternative but to cut, because anything different than that is
sunsets
a decision of the people.
They're in negotiations, and I would not pre-assumed that we know the outcomes of those negotiations. I don't even think we know what's being negotiated or being discussed, quite frankly. I think we're totally in the dark. But anyway, okay, we have two.
I don't support it.
Okay. Darren? I almost called you Russ.
Please do not.
Sorry. Go ahead. Now, where are you on it?
Well, we're voting as to whether or not you guys, it's legit for you to go to RCRC and whatever.
and take a position.
And take a position on it, yeah. So we're voting for you guys to go and
Well, either take a
participate.
position to put the tax extensions on the ballot, or to take
Allow it to expire.
Or I guess there's three alternatives. One is to allow that to go on the ballot. One is to say no, we're opposed to the tax extensions going on the ballot. The third alternative, this was kind of where I am, is to take no position at all and allow the negotiations to take place between the two caucuses and see what comes out of that process.
Well, I applaud the efforts of the Republican caucus to try to leverage what position they have at this point in time to try to get things that they feel important to them onto the ballot. You know, I like that that's part of the political process. However, you know, when it comes down to whether or not these things are going to be levied or not, it's just my personal opinion that it may very well be that most people are of the opinion in a majority that those extensions should continue. Personally, I'm not thrilled with the idea of having to extend paying more taxes. That's something that I'm adamantly against. I'd like to see a smaller government. However, I have to agree that the ultimate decision should not rest in the hands of legislators. It should rest in the hands of the people. That's where the power is meant to be. The power is in the hands of the people. If you do not allow them to weigh in on this and vote on it, then it will be something that's decided by elective legislative people, and we all know how that goes. So I would like it to go before the people and let them decide one way or the other.
On the
tax extension.
Finding out what the Republican...
On the constitutional amendment. Tom, you pulled the board.
Well, I just want to be very clear. That you then, I mean, if the Republicans want things on the ballot, and we're taking this, we're not including a position that includes the Republican positions on the ballot.
Well, if they haven't...
Citizens aren't going to get to decide on that.
There are no...
If the Republicans haven't used their leverage up to this point in time to get things on the ballot, then the time's up.
Time's up. They haven't proposed anything.
Then that means maybe some of those Republicans need to be recalled or lose elections for not getting it together sooner.
They can be in negotiations, but if the Democrats get everything without having to give in to the Republicans, then why should the Republicans or the Democrats negotiate with the Republicans? They're not going to do it. But there's 3 votes that say put the tax extension. Reed and I should put the tax extensions on the ballot, regardless of any of Republican position. Well, that's it.
No,
that's
Tom,
what we're doing.
You're not paying attention.
When it comes back for the Republicans saying they want to put something on the ballot, it isn't going to happen.
Tom,
It just isn't
the
going to
time's
happen.
up.
They've lost their leveraging
don't.
position.
They haven't
The
even
time isn't up.
Tom, they haven't even proposed to put anything on the ballot. One, it's
Well,
the
you don't know what
Constitution.
they've proposed. neither
Tom,
do
I read everything that comes in. Don't you read it all? If you read it, you would know
what
they...
the negotiations are that are taking
Well,
place. Anyway,
time's
there's
up.
3 votes. Put it on the
Thank you.
ballot.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
That completes Marita's comments. I've given my comments. We'll go to Gary, your comments.
I will be attending a luncheon tomorrow at Camps for the Republican Party, Central Committee Party, Calaveras County. Senator Congressman Dan Lundgren will be attending there. I will also be at the Mixer on Thursday, Angels Camp Fairgrounds. That's a chamber mixer. And that concludes my comments.
Okay, Steve.
I have one more thing while he's looking. If you all would like a tour of Ebbets Pass snowstorm, please let me know and we will take you up to see it.
Well, why don't you take pictures and we can have a study session. You can give us a virtual tour.
I did send some pictures. I sent it I sent one of Murphy's, and I sent one of up near Big Trees. There was a big sign with paper on it, and it said, "Please plow this road," with arrows going. It had been like 3 days.
We want pictures after the county dumps the snow at your house.
It's dumped. As I said, I have a shovel in my car.
Okay, let's go get some lunch here quickly. Steve, what do you have? And then we'll go to Darren.
I'll be meeting with Gary and Chris Nelson and a number of other people who are going to be attending a meeting at Mark Twain St. Joseph's about our relationship with Delta College, and with a general thrust of the meeting being our desire to stop being cash cows for San Joaquin facilities and try to get our money maintained here toward the purpose of building a community college facility in Calaveras County. So we're both pursuing that, and we're enlisting the aid of our assemblywoman in trying to get that accomplished on as quick a basis as possible. I will be meeting in Jackson on that's actually Thursday at 1:30 at the hospital. On Friday, I'll be meeting, having a meeting that will be designing a proposal to the Sierra Business Council relating to job creation and economic development in Calaveras County. On Saturday and the weekend, I will be at the mandatory mental health board training that is now supposed to take place on an annual basis. I will be on Monday attending the IHSS Advisory Committee and making a presentation there. And I'm going to keep on going because we don't have a Tuesday meeting. On Tuesday, I'll be at the Motherlode Job Training Board meeting in Sonora. I will also be a week from Thursday at the Sacramento Federal Building with the Sierra Cascades Dialogue Steering Committee. I'll be at the Town Hall Benefit for the Senior Center on Friday, April 1st, and I will be emceeing the West Point Talent Show. Some of you may be skeptical, but I assure you it's wildly entertaining, and that completes my report.
Thank you, Steve. Darren, what do you have for the board?
I'll be attending the lunch with Congressman Lundgren also tomorrow at camps in Greenhorn Creek and over in Angels. And then Thursday we'll have our normal meetings in Valley Springs at Rancho Clubhouse and at Snap's Coffee Shop in Copperopolis. So there's a growing number of people that are meeting there and listening, but also voicing concerns and things like that. I find that highly informative. So.
Okay, thank you. Jim, do you have anything for the board?
Yeah, a few weeks ago you had a study session to talk about Senate Bill 863, which was a sort of an alternate approach to the Williamson Act, allowing the county to share in some of the tax savings that landowners would realize from that. That was continued because you wanted the assessor to bring back some more information, and you wanted me to look into some issues regarding potential conflicts. The legislature has adopted Senate Bill 80. Both houses have adopted this. It hasn't been signed, to my knowledge, by the governor. But Senate Bill 80 in this session repeals Senate Bill 863, which makes that discussion apparently moot. The Senate Bill 80 also there was a $10 million appropriation for subvention payments in the budget, and Senate Bill 80 reduces that to zero. So that's what I know
Okay,
about
so that's off the table.
It is, at least unless the governor vetoes it, I suppose.
Yeah, good luck on that one. Okay, does that complete your comments, Jim?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go to Jeannie.
I'll just follow up quickly. Senate Bill 80 is one of the 17 budget trailer bills that have been passed by the legislature and are on the way to the governor. Once he gets them, he has 12 days to sign them. So we'll see all the devils in the details with some of these bills and which ones are signed or not. As you know, the constitutional amendment legislation and the calls for a special election, the issue of redevelopment agencies, demise, those are things that are still on the table and have not been sorted out. Still looking for a couple of Republican votes. There are some significant cuts in the budget trailer bills that will impact services, CalWorks. There's a $427 million cut to counties' single allocation. We don't have our exact amount that will be cut, but we can expect an 8% cut in grants.
I thought it excluded counties of under 50,000.
That you're talking about the cash deferral.
Oh.
That's just a matter of when the state holds on to monies that pay for social services, and that's the good news, that we're not subject to the state holding our cash. But this is actually cuts in programs and reductions in services that will impact families here in Calaveras. A number of items, IHSS, Mental Health Services Act funds that will be borrowed by the state for mental health services. We don't know yet what the exact dollar amounts that will come out of local allocations, but these are all the things that we'll be taking a look at when we see, number one, which bills actually get signed and how that impacts local services. So,
is the Mental Health Services Act stuff coming out of the innovations portion of the...
Well, that's what,
the
devil's in the
yet know
details. I haven't had a
which.
chance to read the exact language in the bill yet. There are 17 bills, some of them are 300 pages
Chinese
long.
all right, you guys?
But that was the last I heard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie Boyce.
You're welcome.
Okay. Diane, tell us all about what's happening in the clerk's office. Wow. Howard, you have something for the board. I should see you biting at the bit.
Back there smiling all this time, big smile on your face, just brightening up the room.
So I know I'm standing between you and lunch.
It's a dangerous position to be in, Howard.
I wanted to give you just an update on a little more lighter topic, I think, than you've been discussing today. Some of you received an email from a representative from Scenic, from Mr. David Nelson. Just wanted to bring you up to date on that. Some of you may not even know what this is about, so I thought I'd take just a second to bring you up to date. Scenic, which is a Corporation for Education Network Incentives in California, and CVIN, Central Valley Independent Network, which is a group of 8 independent telephone companies, partnered last year to apply for federal stimulus money to build a broadband infrastructure project in 18 counties. It started as 14, it grew to 18. Back in February, this board approved a letter of support for the project. The project was funded and is moving forward. The email is essentially a status update. It brings everybody up to date on what's happened so far. But I thought I'd give you just a couple of the goals. It actually ties together 19 county offices of education, 20 county libraries, 14 community colleges, 3 state campuses, and 7, and I think the number is growing, public safety answering points. They have the goal to provide the connectivity services to businesses, industry, county, state, and federal government, and other telecommunications providers within those 18 counties. And I think they are working together with some other grant awardees to actually expand that coverage to a huge portion of California. But those negotiations are underway and ongoing. The project was a $66.6 million project. $46.6 million was from ERA stimulus funds, $20 million from other sources, including $6.6 million from CPUC, and $13.4 million from the CVIN partners for the project. Right now, they have met with all the stakeholders. They have done an initial project plan. They prepared the draft environmental impact report and has been submitted. So they are well underway. Right now they're working to hire, or they have hired some staff, and they're working out some of the detailed project planning. Their hopes is that in June, the environmental impact report will be finalized and public comment all done, and they'll be ready to start construction. With the ERA project, all of the projects have a 70% completion date within 2 years and 100% within 3 years. So we're looking at the end of August for 2012 for 70% and the end of August 2013 for 100%. So what that does for us is it brings fiber optic broadband connectivity onto campus. We've been working with Public Works to tie that in with the new detention facility project and the infrastructure as it relates to that. It also will provide connectivity in Angels Camp at the Office of Education there. The benefit to the local internet providers in Calaveras County is that they no longer will need to provide access back to Sacramento or Stockton to get on to the internet backbone. Instead, they'll be able to come right to Calaveras County, to the Government Center, or to Angels Camp, Office of Education. A significant expense for those providers is getting the backhaul all the way back into Stockton or Sacramento. So this should be a boon for the local ISPs as well.
Does this potentially make it economically viable to bring this up into the hills?
It does.
Is that the difference maker, do you think?
It will lessen the cost. Obviously, most of you are aware that we also had a competing project and unfortunately weren't funded. Ideally, in our world, both of them could have been funded and great. But this will lessen the cost for the local ISPs because there's several right up on the mountaintop behind us that could come right back here and get it. So that should make their service less expensive, in a sense, free up resources to expand their service.
So to some extent, that is responsive to earlier discussions about what are we doing to try to create a better business environment. This is at least one important piece of that.
It is indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for your foresight in applying for both of these. I appreciate what you're doing on that.
Pleasure.
Okay.
Howard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other staff? Any other board? Marita has suggested we all go to Chinese for lunch to show our multiculturalism. So
International.
International
multiculturalism. Okay.
I thought you were showing solidarity with
Howard's
communist
back.
regime.
Oh, Christ, Howard, you can't do this to us. Okay. Chinese, you guys, and San Andreas, because we only have an hour.